You will find that very many. When one talks of the power of example, one doesn't see the full consequences. We're beginning to see it. If people who are given the mandate and have the responsibility, moral and otherwise, to look after the wealth of the country, proceed to steal it willy-nilly, well, it looks like theft has become a national pastime.
The good thing about all these kinds of theft is that, no shots are fired.
Well, shots don't need to be fired. It's planned.
Not at the dam.
No, it's planned.
Airstrip.
No, it's
not
planned.
At an ATM.
It's planned. It's planned. And you see, people talk about a moral compass. This is a moral compass that is moving in every direction. It depends on where you want to go with it. If it's east, it's going east. If it's west, it's spiraling. It's not out of control. It's just spiraling. You talk about corruption in the police, and we keep saying anecdotally that the police are part of our society, so they reflect what we are. They do. We talk about politicians and the things they do and the insensitivity. They are part of our society. That's who we are. Now, this is a growth industry. By the time you have a situation where two almost copycat thefts take place within a short period of time, this is not a growing concern. It's just a growing industry. Remember, in some parts of Latin America, kidnapping is a growth industry.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it is understood. It's just business.
We should have a theft awards, at the end of the year. I think the one that takes the gold is the thicker one.
No, why
None has overtaken that
But
one.
Eric, if the government is serious about curbing some of these things, why don't you just legalize them?
Oh my goodness.
Legalize theft.
Legalize what?
Theft.
We'd have to call it something else. Theft carries with it connotations of something
it's a growing
wrong.
concern, one could actually earn taxes from it.
Huh.
Yes, and remember, people who steal this money are going to end up spending it in Kenya anyway. I know it sounds a bit odd, but if you have a situation where people are doing something willingly, it's voluntary. This one is voluntary.
Yeah.
Yes, so if it's voluntary, it means people have decided that their pursuit of wealth is in that direction. So
It actually trickles down. Like if you look at the 72 million one, allegedly, there was a garage that was going to benefit. Allegedly, there was a car salesman who benefited. Allegedly,
Eric, do you remember there was a time
petrol
when
stations benefited.
a certain model of vehicle, Toyota specifically, were loved by thieves? Then there was this vehicle called a Prado that came into being. It was also loved. And those who understand this particular business would say that all it requires is 4 hours for that car to vanish, as in the very dismantled, repainted, the works. After 4 hours, your vehicle could pass you on the road and you wouldn't know it.
And you wouldn't know it.
Exactly.
You're looking for it.
Yes. So, all we're saying is a little more attention needs to be paid to the direction, the moral direction.
This country's going.
No, the country has gone. We're not going there. We are
We are
already.
there.
We're already there. All that we're doing is we're worsening.
All right. So let's talk about loans. All right. So the Kenya Bankers Association has conducted a survey on people who are taking loans from not banks but other institutions. All right. And now they're telling us the most expensive loans in the country, in the market. These ones from mobile apps. The most expensive one is Okoa Stima. So Okoa Stima is run on the Safaricom platform. So if you're running out of power tokens and you'd like to buy power tokens from KPLC, you go onto the app, you Okoa Stima, and you buy the tokens. And you're supposed to pay within a week, right? So you end up paying about 43.4%.
And where is the problem exactly?
Like in monthly interest. No, it's not a problem. They're just saying this is the kind of interest rate that you people are paying. 43.4% in a month for the amount that you've borrowed. So if you borrowed 100 bob to Okoa Stima, you end up paying 140 bob.
Yes, you do. And you have electricity. So why are they telling us something that is in the public domain?
No, you didn't know how much you're actually paying for them.
No,
Many
they
people
do
didn't
tell
know.
you.
I think
They do tell you. They inform you.
They inform you per day.
Yes, they inform you what when you acquire anything. They inform you this will
Yes,
will
this is
will
how much you
attract
were going
this
to
and this
pay,
and this
etc.,
and this.
etc.
They inform you.
Yeah.
I think the
Yes.
more worrying.
So now that you're
sorry,
informed,
go
then
ahead.
tell me, Copper Chapa, how much? What's that?
I have no idea. I've never copied Chapa, but what I do know is that
So the
they
information
do
is-
tell you. They even tell you if you borrow this, what you're going to end up paying is this. You're told. You're informed. And unlike the things that banks don't tell you, and yet they charge you. Remember, I was talking about legalizing
I think
theft.
this is where you are heading.
Yes, I'm heading there. You see, we already have an association that calls itself Bankers Association. They're registered.
Yeah.
But they oversee an industry that purports to do more harm than more good than it actually does. Yes, they lend you money when they want to lend you money. They say they charge you this, but then they charge you a lot more than they actually charge you. It's called usury. What do you think they're doing?
My take is there should be a rate cap on it. It's taking advantage of somebody's misfortunes, and of course somebody's desperate and they'll go for it. But it needs to be regulated. Excuse me. It needs to be regulated, definitely.
I agree. I think it needs to be regulated.
Again,
And
the banking interest?
No,
No.
the sort of
all interest,
Tala and
even the mobile interest.
That's what we're saying.
So-
I am in agreement.
They should all be regulated because when you're going to pay at 43.4%, and you're allowing somebody to lend at 43.4%, why are you coming to cap mine at 14?
Right.
Right.
Also, it's a debt trap. You just get into a vicious cycle with them.
Many people are actually now report. You know, when you don't repay so this is what guys have been doing according to this report. There are some people who borrow for betting, and we'll be talking about betting. So they borrow to bet, and then the money that you actually borrowed and you went to bet and you didn't win the bet, so you end up not
Being able to
repaying.
pay it
So you
back.
default. You're reported to the Credit Reference Bureau, right? And so you're blacklisted by that mobile app from borrowing again. And actually, not just only that mobile app, but this information is accessible by the
Any other lender.
lenders. So you're basically blacklisted. So that means that because you borrowed once and you defaulted, you're blacklisted. And
So, Eric, how many times must
People
you
are
borrow
throwing-
and default? before
Which
you're
I think
blacklisted?
isn't such a bad idea. It
No, it
stops
isn't.
getting
Yeah.
you getting into more debt.
yes, it's
I
true.
think
People now throw away that SIM card, get a new SIM card, and you borrow.
No. You actually don't quite get away with it because...
You still need your ID.
Yes,
I
the
think
process
the
of
structure's
registering
in
a
place
SIM
to
card.
prevent that.
Yes, exactly. They'll get you. Yes, your details will be the same.
I agree with the CRB being as stringent as they are, but to a certain extent. So, for instance, when it comes to somebody borrowing to gamble and it becoming a habit and them not paying back, it can actually work as a safety net so that you don't get into too much debt. But when it comes to how quickly they put you on the CRB list and what for, they should look at your history. It should be a rating like they do elsewhere. You have a credit rating. It's not that you're on the list and you're blacklisted. So, for instance, somebody who's taken out loans previously for businesses for hundreds of millions and they've always paid it back, and then they have a few bad months, they're immediately listed, which doesn't make sense. So, for me, the CRB needs to rejig how it works.
No, the CRB is
It
actually a
isn't
credit.
the CRB.
It's a bank.
It's our
isn't it?
lending institution.
It's a lending institution because the CRB actually,
It's
because
just
of the
informed,
information
isn't
that
it?
they
Yeah.
receive, they create a credit rating for you. That's what it actually is, and you can actually go and check out your credit rating
Okay.
any day, and so that rating is what comes in. So if you're reported today and tomorrow and the day after, of course your rating goes swiftly down. Just because you defaulted in monthly payment, this time you were late, so you're reported. Next time you are late by 10 days, you again reported. Next month, another month you're late by 25 days, you're reported. So your rating
It's sort of
basically
a
just drops.
policeman for the banks and lending institutions, I guess.
And CRB should also work both ways. So if you're a good, if you have a good credit rating, it should help you get lower interest rates. However,
now
it doesn't
you're going
work.
into subprime mortgages and things like that, which
No,
is what
no,
led
no.
to the
No, it's subprime
financial
mortgages.
crisis.
Actually-
you can't charge people, especially
Actually, the idea
people
of,
who are
the
unlikely
idea
to
of
pay back or
CRBs
struggling should not be charged higher rates.
The idea
It's
of
just unfair.
CRBs, no. It helps you to negotiate. The idea of CRBs is if you have a good rate, then it gives you power to negotiate. So the rate cap is at 14%, you can negotiate yours to be at 12%.
And where does this work exactly?
It should work here in Kenya, but it doesn't.
Should work?
That's the whole idea of CRB. It should be both ways. Right now, it's just only punitive, but it doesn't give you the positive rating, doesn't give you any benefit.
Other than access to the loans.
Only.
But on the flip side, if some people are being charged more, it becomes unfair. This is what I'm talking about, subprime lending, whereby because you have bad credit or a previous history with bad repayments, you're now going to be charged more interest, which is going to be, you're less likely to pay it. Either you lend somebody at a good rate or you don't.
You do realize that it already happens. You can actually go and negotiate your rates.
Absolutely.
That is allowable, right?
Absolutely, but I don't think it should be based on your credit rating.
That's what it
because you take advantage of people who are, again, desperate. This is what happened in the US before the financial crisis with subprime mortgages. Anyway, we were on the news before we get into lending rules and so on. I'm looking at The Nation, and there's a lady here looking quite angry and mean, staring at me. It says, wanted, spy queen on the run. So it's not your ordinary woman. Jane Warira Mugo cuts the image of a sophisticated private investigator and entrepreneur with interests in security consultancy. Until recently, you could hire her services to spy, track, and catch a cheating partner. But in a typical case of where the hunter becoming the hunted, police are now seeking her over a series of crimes, including armed robbery and impersonation. And this is front page. It's headlines. I don't think it belongs on the front page or on the headlines, but of course it's very saucy and sensational, so, to say the least. Spy queen on the run after falling out with police. Okay, so it seems she was working with her at some point.
There's a deeper story here. It actually is I believe it's a
You believe it's a headline story?
Yes.
Okay, go on.
Because of the deeper story that it says. There's a fallout with the police. It also exposes how police work with their informers. So apparently this lady went to report to the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights that she was getting harassed and threatened by police.
Right.
Because she had a dossier. And then soon after, the police say that she's been sought.
Okay, well, it's been framed incorrectly then. Very misleading. But yes, spy queen on the run. I think this will be an ongoing story over the weekend or by Monday, Tuesday.
Yes.
We'll see.
Well, of interest is, it's standard at the corner. Woman's honest gesture wins praise. This is a story of a young lady who was a waitress at a hotel, a very interesting hotel. It's called Nice Digital Hotel in Mwea.
Nice.
The hotel is called Nice Digital.
Okay.
Nice.
Kirinyaga County. I know it actually.
Yes, exactly, just off the road. Yes, yes, exactly a nice place.
It's a nice
Couldn't
one.
find a better word.
Yes.
It's a nice is a nice place.
The Nice is a really nice place. Well, she
Nice
found
one.
a purse with 60,400 shillings or thereabouts and returned it.
Oh wow, who to?
The owner.
Okay.
Yes.
It was that's a very good story.
Oh, I mean, against the backdrop
Of what we've been
Of what you just
of the
talked about,
gentleman
our
who,
culture.
Yes, our culture. Well, I'm being put to shame here. We do have people in this country who are not only honest, but seem to be honest. They are genuinely honest.
Do you think there's a moral duty to return it if you find money?
I think it is. It isn't yours.
Some people in other parts of the world will say,
No,
God has
it's
blessed
very
me.
simple.
It could be a blessing, right?
God has blessed
it
me.
isn't a blessing. So, in the same vein that a thief should pray before they go out to steal and ask God to protect them for stealing.
And bless the work of their hands.
That you find us keepers.
Yeah. No. That's moral subversion. I
Oh.
mean,
Really? I think that's a good. And the sad part is that this is appearing to be, what is not normal. It's odd.
Cases such as this.
Yeah,
We're
it's
finding
odd
it
when
odd
somebody's
that
actually
somebody
doing the right
found
thing.
money.
Few and far between cases like this.
I mean, don't you think that it's really a terrible thing when something that is pleasant and ought to be normal becomes the unusual?
Yes.
Well, my point exactly. That's where we are at.
That's where we are as a society. Still in Kirinyaga, there's a road that the President Uhuru Kenyatta had promised the people of Kianyaga and Kiamutogo that it was going to be done in 2014. However, a gigantic fig tree standing between the two towns now poses a headache for the contractor and the residents. The contractor has left the tree revered by the Kikuyu community as sacred, leaning precariously after residents insisted that it could not be brought down before special rites were conducted. The Mugumo tree is important in the entire Mount Kenya region. You know that. Even today, elders go there to pray and sacrifice. It should not just be brought down by any human activity.
Why is it revered? This particular tree.
It was believed to be sacred. That's why you go to pray.
I have understood the sacred bit.
But why?
Why it? There are other trees. Why it?
The Mugumo. I don't know exactly why it. I don't know. I don't know actually who decided that this is the one and not any other tree. But also, the Mugumo tree is it grows and stays for very long. You can actually find a Mugumo tree that's older than many people. So
That's a very cleverly phrased statement. It's older than many people. Okay? You do understand that people below the age of 30 are the majority in this country.
yeah, so
it's
you can
older.
find a Mugumo tree that's older than, and even in those days, a Mugumo tree, so it would span generations. So your grandfather, when he was young, they used to watch people go to pray under the same tree. That's even now being. You've been born, you've grown up, you're now Mzee, you're still going to the same tree. So it holds some heritage. And
Apart
history.
from religious, the religious position it holds, is it good for timber? I mean, what is it good for?
The fig
Beyond,
tree.
yes.
They
Beyond,
wouldn't cut it down. We wouldn't know.
Who knows?
It wouldn't be cut down. And it's quite symbolic, I think, spiritually as well. So if it falls down, it's a symbol or a signal for something. If a Mugumo tree falls down.
If a Mugumo tree falls down,
But this is...
It all sounds very
leader.
absurd, but I'm so used to it. that-
I'm not
A
saying it's
leader-
absurd.
a leader
Because
would die.
at some point, it will fall down.
Why?
when it does,
There's trees that are hundreds and hundreds of years old.
Yes.
Not all trees eventually fall down.
They do.
Trees have a life cycle.
You may not just be there when they fall down, but they do.
Eventually they fall down. All right.
Eventually they do.
the day they do,
Yes.
whichever day that one tree falls down, it's expected that a prominent person is going to die.
Oh, really?
In coming days, yes.
Eric, you believe this?
See, I'm just reporting.
Okay, you're reporting that you believe.
Mm.
Okay.
I believe it.
But, this is in the headlines.
I
but
follow it, I embrace it, and I appreciate it and respect it.
Clearly, you're a tree hugger. This is good.
It's actually said to have been, I think it has also biblical connotation, the fig tree. It's said to have represented what was the tree of life in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, etc. It's known as the tree of life.
Fig tree.
The fig tree, actually, yes.
Tree of life.
Yes. This is it. Yes, I was saying it has some biblical connotation to it as well. Yes.
As is in the Bible.
Yes.
And the Bible mentions the fig tree does as the tree of life?
Well, the Bible mentions the fig tree a lot of times when it looks at some of the parables that Jesus told in the New Testament. And then biblical philosophers have
It
also
also
said...
mentions a sycamore tree.
Yes, but we're talking specifically about this one. And in the Garden of Eden, biblical philosophers have said that the tree of life, which Eve went and they actually said that it probably was a fig that she took and shared with her husband. Okay,
Fig.
but we could go... This could go in very, very many directions.
Okay.
But I'm just giving that
none of
choice.
us was there. We've read about it. We are told us what happened. So let's believe that it happened.
Back to reality, and on the front page of the Nation still, Ruto and Waigoro face off over Uhuru succession. This is, of course, Ruto jumping on to a comment that Waigoro had made that Kenya was not ready for yet another Kikuyu president, which I think is in keeping with the sentiments generally. And Ruto has jumped onto this and taken advantage of it, of course, great at spinning. And he said, why are we making this a tribal issue? So very, very clever he's come in there. So they're at loggerheads with one another on that. Well, that's what the headlines are telling us. Mr. Ruto and Waigoro face off.
Remember the comment that Waigoro made, and we talked about it yesterday, that Uhuru will tell the people of Central what direction to take because he's their leader. And then Ruto comes and says, no. Uhuru was elected as a president because he's a leader, not because he belongs to the tribe. So the whole story of saying that Uhuru will tell the Kikuyus where to vote is fallacious.
But of course, also it's it's fallacious, is it? Of course, he'll tell the Kikuyu where to vote. Sorry. Of course, it's interesting with Waigoro saying that we're not ready for another Kikuyu leader as Kenyans. She's of course implicitly also saying another Kalenjin either. So she's leaning towards Raila. So you can see why Ruto is reacting. If we're to make this tribal, it's been Kikuyus and Kalenjins running the country, which is a I think one of the narratives that will be running in 2022, I've spoken about that. It will be that and the hustler narrative. You know, poor versus rich will be Ruto's narrative.
Dynasties versus
Yep.
hustlers.
Whereas anybody else will run a narrative of we can't have another Kalenjin president or another Kikuyu president. There's other communities.
In 2007, it was 42 versus 41 versus 1. In 2012, it was we cannot have another Kikuyu, and that's why the Madimoni came in, and Musalia was briefly considered.
In 2012, I think the narrative
then
that
it
won
changed
the day
again.
was sovereignty. I think we felt that ICC was interfering with our sovereignty,
Indeed.
and that actually gelled the people together. And we all
Sovereignty won the
voted.
day against that story of you can't have another Kikuyu. A Kikuyu cannot succeed a Kikuyu because it was there. Coming from Kibaki to Uhuru, or Kikuyu to Kikuyu, or remember, and that's why the people who are pushing for Musalia Mudavadi to be supported by Uhuru Ruto.
I don't think we can have another Kikuyu, in all honesty, now. I don't think we can have a Kikuyu in 2022.
pushing it.
But I was thinking about it in the car. I think Martha Karua will be governor of Nairobi in 2022. Because we can have a Kikuyu governor now.
Governor.
Remember, we have a bet running.
Governor of Nairobi,
We have a bet running.
which
Jerry.
was.
And you said, and we placed the bet, and you told us to place a bet, and you're about to lose.
I told you, no, Mudavadi for president.
No, you said
Kiraito.
Martha Karua will be on the presidential ballot.
She will be. Well, she said she will be, but I might advise her otherwise. So that's.
She will
I
be.
saw it today in my crystal ball, and I said,
yes.
Governor Nairobi 2022, Martha Karua.
Okay.
She can't win the presidency as a woman, as a Kikuyu. She's got too much going against her.
So to win the president, what would she need to do?
Not be a woman, not be a Kikuyu.
Not be Kikuyu or female in this sense. Things that you cannot change.
Counties again. So we spoke about the Kisumu County Speaker, right? Now let's speak of the Kakamega County Speaker. After 2 meetings with the governor, MCAs have backtracked on their bid to eject their speaker. Plans to debate the impeachment of County Assembly Speaker Maurice Buluma was scuttled at the last minute after ward reps met Governor Wycliffe Oparanya. The speaker, who's an ally of the governor, has been accused of blocking debate on the Auditor General's reports touching on questionable expenditure by the executive and assembly. The ward reps further accused Buluma of serving the interests of the executive, ruling with an iron fist and absenteeism. They're also accusing the speaker of not providing at least 3 support staff for nominated ward reps and furnishing their offices. At least 3 support staff for nominated MCAs. And so that's what MCAs are getting, 3 support staff. They also claim that a majority of them had not been
Support staff
granted
being
mortgage
PAs.
facilities. I guess so. Yeah. So a bid to eject. What why are you disgusted by 3 PAs?
I'm trying to.
You know, a
really
ward is a
understand-
big place.
Oh, sorry. I'm really trying to understand what it is that they would try to, or they would seek to achieve with having 3 support staff. Multiply that by the number of MCAs that are there, and we're already seeing that the pockets of the government is already strained. So I don't know what it is, and really, what is it that they're trying to achieve?
And they need to absorb the funds. Remember, I said there was a problem with absorption. So employment works very well. They need to absorb the funds. Otherwise, they get less money in the following
next
financial
financial
year. Yep.
You know, I don't think the problem is absorption. We call it absorption because that's the term. If you have money and you don't spend it, then
Hire staff.
it is yes, the way it is reported. If you don't spend it, it means you can't spend it. So you have a problem with absorption. But if you go by the track record of our national institutions, the problem usually isn't that. I mean, when you have a budget, it means you have plans to use the money. It's outlined. So the question is, why is it that you don't implement these plans? Because that's where the not spending comes in.
That's exactly it.
Because well,
It's actually called budget and appropriation. So when you're making a budget, you're basically saying X amount shall go to this
Yes.
particular project that you've identified as important.
You have.
And
unless
then
of course then you want to scrutinize
and
and
then
say
you're given the
perhaps
money.
the intention was different from the actuality.
No,
of
the
what
way
you
it
wanted to do
works,
with
the way
money.
it works is central government gives out a certain amount of money to each county.
Yeah.
So it's not that they have a budget per se beforehand and request it. They give out a certain amount of money every year, depending on there's a formula that's put together by
Yes.
revenue allocation guys.
Yes.
And they give out the money, and then it's for county government to decide how they're going to use it
Exactly.
within a fiscal framework.
Yes.
Like there's a public finance sort of
There's a
regulation.
budget.
They must still account for.
So
Account-
they
money
then
that-
have a budget.
A county
You have
passes
to
a
have a
budget.
budget.
Yes.
Yes, thereafter,
And then-
it's not that they have a budget that they request to central government for them to be given money. So they're given money and then they do their budgets.
No.
They're planning, yes.
No.
Jerry, you can't
They
ask
don't
for money
request-
without a budget.
No, they don't request for money. They are given money based on a formula. And,
And
this
they
is quite a
know-
contentious point. that
Yes,
Different
and-
counties get different amounts
We
of
are
money
not
to cry.
disputing
We are not
that.
disputing
We
that.
are not
Okay.
disputing
We are
that.
saying that in the budget making process, for example, when the national government is doing its budget in June, the county assemblies are also doing their budgets around the same time in July. So they are working with a budget. And the budget has identified X number of projects to be
Right.
funded in the next financial year for this March. So you already know. So when you receive the money and you don't implement those projects that you wanted to implement in your budget,
You have some left over.
yeah, so
Okay.
why didn't you implement
So what
the
you do is in
projects?
the next financial year, you budget so that it's very easy to implement the project, i.e. employment.
Let me
And
ask
you
a-
employ 3
let me
extra
ask a different
PAs for the
question.
MCAs.
when the central government says it is allocating this amount of money to the county, do the counties actually get all that money
Absolutely, yeah.
all the
Not-
time?
Not all the time.
No.
They
Not all-
would be
not all
up
the
in
time.
arms if they didn't.
They are
They do.
usually
There
up.
might be some delays, but
What
they
happens is
do
there are
get
many
it.
Delays. There are many delays, and one of the reasons why also there's that lack of absorption is that it's
Yes.
because you didn't receive the money on time,
the time
so
when you
therefore
wanted
you
to.
could not start the project
On time?
on time, and by the time the money is coming, you really can't start the project and finish it on time. So,
Yes.
also the national government suffers the same. Ministries, a lot of ministries are not absorbing what has been budgeted for them. Same reason.
Yes. If the money doesn't come in time, you actually can't implement. And then sometimes there's an overlap.
Indeed. It's 29 minutes to 7 o'clock. You are in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. When you come back, we will discuss what is going to be happening on Monday next week. The competency-based curriculum assessment for grade 3 pupils. So, do we know what competency-based curriculum is all about? What is this grade 3? Is it standard 1? Is it standard 3? Well, we'll find out shortly.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
98.7 Spice FM, Mombasa. Traffic.
All right, it is Friday, and we already know what is going to happen along Thika Road. There will be some issues today because a certain section of the road will be closed for maintenance and construction. So we realize that a traffic holdup will start early. So you need to get out before you get stuck. Magadi Road this morning had some issues where a small car had rammed into a trailer and that particular vehicle was on fire. Police have arrived at the scene and now traffic is moving along slowly just around the Multimedia University. The terrible accident that involved a lorry and matatu is what is bringing those issues this morning. All right, Mombasa Road is moving along slowly this morning. However, surely we don't have any issues around Jogo Road or Langata Road at the moment. But that is likely to build up because of this issue that we see further up the road. Right now, not so much to report. If you do see anything that we should know about, give us a call on 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, and 97.6 in Malindi. We are streaming live on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, on www.spicefm.co.ke. And our feedback line always is 0719 012 600. Curriculum competency-based curriculum.
All right. Well, 2018, we looked at coming towards the end of the year. There were talks about the competency-based curriculum that was going to be introduced into the education system in Kenya. Basically, what this was is that it was going to replace the long-time 844 system. Now, just by the definition, just from the words you can see, competency-based. And what the design of this new curriculum was meant to be was to focus on developing skills and actually emphasize the significance of skills development and knowledge and applying those competencies to real-life situations. Now, the creators of this competency, okay, I'm not going to even, focus on that word.
Competency.
CBC.
The creators of the CBC, who interestingly were not Kenyan, focused on communication and collaboration, critical thinking and problem solving, imagination and creativity, citizenship, learning to learn, self-efficacy, and digital learning. And they said these are the things that after learners, not called students anymore in this new system, after they had passed through the system, these are the things that they wanted them to be able to have mastered. We have change of a lot of the words and definitions that we used to describe or that related to the 844 system. So classes become grades, and we only had 2 years of pre-primary before we got into grade 1. Learning topics became strands, objectives became outcomes, and teaching aids became learning resources. So a lot of words changed basically to back up this CBC and to back up this new kind of learning, because we wanted to make the shift from cramming for exams to actually learning these topics and then being able to apply them to life. And this is what was, formed the basis for this new curriculum. Now, towards the end of the year, 2018, we saw that the announcement was made that in January of 2019, boom, the new curriculum would be rolled out. And there was uproar and there was hue and cry, and a lot of people said, look, we are not ready for this. And a lot of that cry came from the Kenya National Union of Teachers, backed by Mr. Sosion himself. And he said, look, we are not ready for this thing. Where is this orc? It's jumping out of the woodwork at us. But the government actually rebutted and said, you know what? We spent a long time and there was participation from the National Steering Committee, which includes a lot of these teachers' bodies. It includes the public and private schools associations. And we went out across the country and we talked about this. Yes, that was not made public because it was work that they were doing in the background. So there was push and pull, and eventually it was rolled out. There was training that was done, according to the ministry, of almost 200,000 teachers. Now, an exam is about to happen on Monday for the grade 3 students. And there has been a lot of talk about how they're not ready because the students don't know what to expect. They don't know what this exam is about. a lot of teachers in different parts of the country feel that they are not ready to roll out this new system of education, and they really don't know what it is all about. It brought the argument that there are certain teachers who do know, or there are certain stakeholders who do know what is going on, but the information has not trickled down. Have we gotten ourselves into a situation where we are looking for something that would be for the eventual good of our students and good of our teachers? We've gotten in above our heads, or do we take the jump and then learn as we go along? Suffice to say that if a few have raised up their voices to say that they're not ready for this, it is something that we should take into consideration. I am all for trying something new, and I'm all for bringing in change, but I think that there's certain parameters that should have been covered, and there's certain voices we must listen to if we are going to get it done right.
Which voices?
Well, I think that within reason, there are these voices that have come up and said, look, we're not ready, we don't know. Even the nitty-gritty of even getting material for this specific exam on Monday. For this specific exam on Monday, getting material, those are things that I think we should have taken into consideration, because what you do is that once you taint it, then you're going to have, you're going to have a negative, or you're going to have a bias as you go along, regardless of what the situation is. Many things should have been taken into consideration. We have an issue, and it must be addressed. It must be paid attention to, whether we like it or not, because it's the future of our children that we're talking about, and we can't take it as a joke.
So, Nat embattled Nat Secretary General Wilson Sossion has, previously led, from the front in saying, we were not adequately consulted on this. This program is being hurriedly implemented. And this is what he had to say one time when he was clashing with the Education CS, Professor Magoha.
GKT News in Kakamega.
To education matters, the Kenya...
No, let me not play that. This is what Master Sossion was saying.
The nation is at the threshold of rolling out a curriculum. If we get it wrong, we shall damage millions and millions of children for many years to come.
The way I was created by God, I only trust Him and nobody else. So when you see me talking very passionately about this system, I have gone to schools. Ignore the prophets of doom who are going to come and tell you that this system has failed. They are real prophets of doom. I want to challenge all of you to go to our primary school classrooms. Please try and go without notice. Are you listening? And tell me what you find there. Because I have sampled many of them across the country. And I'm not the type to be told to go and say this. That one you can forget. And even as late as 2 days ago, in the bush somewhere, I was thoroughly impressed by what our excellent teachers are doing with our children. The child may be wearing a torn shirt or a torn sweater like I used to wear when I was at that age. But the child has a book, the child has an IT item, and they are engaging the teacher in the CBC. So why don't we identify the pitfalls and deal with them? That's why I say leave politics outside the door. I'm not under any circumstances, sir, disregarding how important politics is, but this one, we better just deal with the issues first. Then you will find that really we have no choice. Would you like your child to continue the way the child has been continuing for the last 34 years? Yet the ground has shifted completely.
Yep. That's CS Magoha. He says, ignore the naysayers.
Actually, you cannot ignore the naysayers. When the 844 system was introduced, similar sentiments were expressed. Similar. People were not prepared. It wasn't piloted. People didn't really fully understand it, yet it was implemented. And yet, if you look at the 844 system, in theory, it is a fairly good system, in theory. The practice is what now became a problem. It was a burden to parents, a burden in many ways. The content was burdensome. Children studied for long hours. Many questions were raised. Are these children in the university? Are they studying for some postgraduate work? Are children leave school, come home, study until 11, sleep. They're up at 5. Many issues arose. Now, when you say you're introducing a new curriculum, against the backdrop of the 844 and what parents have gone through, people will resist it. Because they're thinking, if we don't understand this, and we already have a system that we have at last gotten to a point where we're getting used to it, despite the challenges. Now you want to introduce something new. Against that background of issues that parents have gone through, this is something that they will oppose. And when they say they don't understand, I don't think it's that they haven't been told. No. I think enough time has not been taken to ensure they understand it. And if they haven't understood it, they will oppose it very, very vociferously. They are not going to go along with it. Because at the end of the day, who bears the burden? The teacher? No, parents.
The parent.
Teachers just teach. I'm not saying this rudely. I'm simply saying they teach. There are those who argue that when the children are in school, they are there in loco parentis. That is Latin for instead of the parents. Okay? We accept. But the parents are the ones who actually bear the bigger burden when it comes to these matters. So, if we talk about public participation and we consider it to be a cornerstone in making the sort of fundamental changes that this curriculum-based system is making, then a little more care ought to have been taken in ensuring, not just saying it, in ensuring that it is understood.
I think you understate the importance of what you're saying. The focus should have been on teachers primarily. Finland has one of the best education systems, and I'd like to talk about that later. But one of the core pillars for that is the fact that they invest heavily in teachers. Teachers are highly valued in society. Their training is science-based, the training for the teachers. So if teachers are feeling they're not able in Kenya to embrace a particular curriculum, there's a huge problem. If we can see the ingredients of what a successful education system looks like, and the main ingredient is what the teachers are like. So we've got to empower the teachers. If teachers do have any resistance, we've got to understand why it is, what the bottlenecks are. If it's extra training, extra time, whatever it is the teachers need, they need to be empowered for a good education system to work.
So, well, CBC has been rolled out between P1 to grade 3, and it hasn't actually gone to grade 4. So the current grade 3s are the ones who are going to continue advancing like that into grade 4 and like that.
The current grade 3s are the ones they're going to experiment with.
Yes. So this is basically the trial phase, so to speak. It's a countrywide trial phase, and one of the reasons why they're doing the assessment on Monday is to see whether it actually has had an impact, what kind of changes we've seen, what is it actually bringing out, what we wanted to bring out in a child at that age, at that stage.
What would you want? You see, I still have a problem with having rigorous testing at 8 years old. What would you want to bring out in a child? Why are you beginning to condition them before they've developed? Places like Sweden, you don't even start to learn to read and write until you're about 7 or 8 years old, so that you can actually develop into who you are.
How old are you in grade 3?
8.
No.
Yes.
No.
You're going to year 1 at 6. Year 2 at 7. You're going to year 1 at age 6 or 5.
At 7.
Oh, really?
Okay, you go to okay. I think
grade 1 at 7.
Grade 1 at 7, or what previously was standard 1.
Yep.
At 7 years old.
Yep.
Yes.
Not 6.
No.
7.
That is the prescribed, and that is how we're saying moving forward it must be.
That's how it has been.
Previously, you had standard 1 starting at the age of 6.
Yes.
Right?
6.
6
7.
years old.
What Eric is telling you is actually true.
7 is what it was supposed to be.
Why are we quibbling over this 1 year difference?
I went to equivalent of grade 1 age 5.
Yes.
Because I thought 6 was I thought 6 was the standard. I was a few months
There
off.
was a time people got into Form 1 at the age of 11. At the age of
the
12.
11 plus.
Yes.
Okay. So what we're saying is that we start standard 1, grade 1 at the age of 7 years old.
Yes.
So now in this case, grade 3.
Grade 3 is 9.
You're 9
years
You're
old.
9.
It's still too early to be testing whether you've indoctrinated. Basically, what they're saying is that we're testing whether this indoctrination is working, because that's what education is in essence. It's a programming of the mind. Now, what states in Scandinavia do is they leave that off for as long as possible to allow the individual to develop, so that their creativity and their personality comes out before you start sort of meddling,
Conditioning it.
conditioning them.
Are you saying
So
there's no
for
form
me,
of
by
assessment
age
at all?
No, you're not reading or writing until you're about 7, 8 years old.
All right, no.
It's
And-
play,
and-
sharing,
yes,
human
yes,
interaction,
Is
emotional
there an
intelligence.
assessment at all?
Assessment doesn't have to involve reading and writing.
No, it
Yes.
actually doesn't.
Is
It's
there an
interesting
assessment
because
at all?
No, it's interesting
No.
because what happens is that
There is an assessment.
they don't even actually. Well, if we're looking at these
Even
other
learning
countries,
doesn't have to involve reading and writing.
Yes.
they actually leave them and they actually sit in these classes or these areas, what they call, learning environments, and they actually allow them to select and choose in which direction that they would naturally be inclined to.
Absolutely.
So there is no testing, there is no assessment.
There is. It's called observation. When you observe, what are you doing? You are assessing.
You're assessing.
That's
Oh
what
yes,
you're
there's
doing.
assessments like that, but it's not to fit in with a tick box exercise. You don't have a
Actually,
blueprint.
actually
You don't
it
have
is.
a blueprint that you're
It
trying to
is.
fit this person into.
It-
You're watching them and saying, okay, this person.
There's a
There is
framework.
a blueprint.
There's a
There is
framework.
But it's a
there is-
very broad-based one where they're not trying to push you in one direction. But my point was 9 is too early to be testing at a national level. We've seen the pressure these exams at KCP and so on put on teenagers who are even older and, following suicides after results and expectations that are put on parents to achieve. So if at 9 years old we're testing and assessing, and it's academically based. You're not testing whether this person has good interpersonal skills. You're not testing their emotional intelligence.
There are 3 assessments. There's math, there's English, and then there's the others. And the others include what you're talking about.
Right. I still think 9 is too young to have for national exams. National exams started, especially in countries like Kenya, where the education was developing and there was barriers in terms of finances. It was to weed people out. So at some point, I remember somebody's grandmother telling me, if you didn't pass the class 4 exam, you couldn't go on to school, which worked at the time.
Intermediary.
Yeah, which worked at the time because we just didn't have the finances as a developing country. We didn't have the economic muscle to educate the whole country. So it was a way to weed people out. Of course, we're past
No,
that
that
now.
was the negative interpretation of it.
What was the positive?
The positive was this. It was
Assessment.
that wasn't it was just the only exam. You then had an exam at standard 7. You had an exam at form 2. You had an exam at form 4. You had an exam at form 6.
And if you didn't pass at each stage, you couldn't
wouldn't
go.
go on
You
to the
didn't
next
go on to
level.
school. That was the end.
No.
You would
You'd
go
be
on
branched off.
You would go on, but in a
Yes,
different
different
direction.
direction.
Which
Yes.
was much cheaper.
Not
It's not
necessarily
about the
cheaper.
cost.
No,
It's about
not
what
the
suits
cost.
you. It's
It
about
was-
where
it
you.
was
it's-
much
it's
cheaper.
It
about
was
where
an
you
assessment
fit.
that gave the examiners an opportunity to
Okay.
determine where you were best suited.
And
at
that's
that
why you
point
had the
in time.
technical training colleges. That's why we had those
Vocational
things,
training.
vocational
Yes.
training.
Okay.
Because
Right.
when you get into
Back to my
assessment,
point,
you
with
get-
where I stand, I'm completely against assessing children at age 9 at that level. The rigorous testing it's national. It's not an exam that you're having, a test. It's not an end of term test.
Jerry, is it
It's
really
way
safe
too much
to make,
pressure.
is it really safe to make a blanket statement like that on an issue like this when it is clear that assessment isn't a one-all-fit-on? Assessments differ. You are talking about academic assessment.
Exams.
So
I'm
state
imagining
it-
a KCP
state it as such.
situation
And
where they
stop
start
imagining
reporting
that.
which schools have done the
Yes,
best and the
stop-
pressure is
stop
on
imagining.
schools.
I think that.
All right, I think we know what we need to do is be very clear, and this is what has not been made clear.
Yes.
What has not been made clear is how this assessment then will translate into the next phase of the teaching or the education.
Actually, it has. They
Okay,
have.
just so the information has been passed on, but it has not been understood, especially by parents, and it is extremely important that they do get it. Students are also saying, unfortunately, I could not get verbatim because obviously underage and they didn't give their consent. But just taking a snapshot of what students said yesterday, they feel it's a national exam. And 2 of them actually told me, I hope I come number 1. In this assessment that's happening on Monday, I'm actually aiming to be number 1. They don't understand that it's actually seeing where they fall.
And also, it's new. It's
very
a
new.
system.
But
So
the
are they not
information-
going to release results and
information that
compare?
Oh.
the
They're
inf-
not going to release results like they
let
do.
me set the back for this. So they feel that it's a national exam that is going to position them in this new system of learning.
It is.
They feel position them in terms of ranking, in terms of I am number 1 in my class, not in terms of where you are in the scheme of things
You see,
and how your mind is working.
it's because
So we are
of the
still
the
going to the back.
background
We're
is-
still going to the same place or the same issues that we had with the 844. People feel it's a national exam
It's
and I have to
understanding.
pass. It's understanding. And like we said before, communication is a two-way thing. Just because you're giving the information out doesn't mean that that's where the job stops. You must make sure that the person on the receiving end has actually understood what it is that you're saying. Otherwise, it's an exercise in futility. And at this point, it seems that if information has been given, we've wasted a lot of hours because the people on the receiving end have not understood what this is all about. The children themselves, who are the subject of this matter, really don't know. They know that, yeah, it's a different kind of learning, but they're not really sure then, okay, how are we going to be assessed? What does that then mean? Even the grade 3s who are taking this exam on Monday actually feel that they're looking for yet another ranking in how they're learning, which is not the case. And even for us sitting here, we don't know then after this assessment what happens.
You know something? The way the human mind works, even if it was explained, it doesn't mean it is understood the way you want it to be understood. People will go with what they know. And that's how they will describe this new thing from the point of view of what they know or what they've experienced before.
Until they experience it.
Yes.
And then they see the difference.
Yes.
And that's when
that's why you call it a pilot.
Let me add some fodder to this for you to understand it even further. From the point of the parents.
We've just been told we understand nothing. Anyway, carry on.
From the point of the parents who said to us yesterday as well that, okay, so my children then will take this exam. I don't know how to prepare them. Is there something that they need to study? Until now, I don't know if there's a book. Yesterday, Thursday.
Those are founded fears.
Yes, but I'm telling you what they said so that now we can now go on to have the discussion around that. Is there a book that I need to buy for them to study some more over the weekend before they take this exam on Monday? You know, and from my understanding I said, no, this is assessing where they already are. So it's what they already know, it's what they already understand that is now being brought out in this assessment that's happening on Monday. But they're still not convinced. They believe that no. In order for my child to do well in this exam, there's some kind of material that I have to buy.
Children, correct?
Right.
All right. Schools tend to call meetings to explain to parents all manner of things that happen to the school. If you attend these meetings, if you look, thank you. You know I'm going with this one.
I can see where this is going.
Yes, exactly. The population or the number of parents who attend these meetings, usually, if they're 30%, it's a wonderful figure. Very rarely.
Well, parents have to go to work as well. So while the teachers are doing their work, parents also work.
Some of these meetings are called on Saturdays, okay? And still, the representation of parents. So if
shopping and errands.
So if that is the point at which the parents were going to be informed, if you didn't attend that meeting, you will not be informed.
Yeah.
Some schools take it even further. They get your email address. They send you messages.
Too many.
People still don't read those messages.
There are too many.
Yes. There are too many. My parents didn't. I've noticed as well with homework. My parents didn't get involved in my homework at all. Not once did I sit with my parents to do homework. And now schools are stipulating that you're supposed to sit, and you're paying fees. I'm thinking, no.
That's a different discussion.
Come home and we'll do something else. We'll do social activities and bonding activities. But I'm not sitting down to do homework with my children.
The point I'm making, I'm not watering down what you're saying, I'm saying this is a multifaceted issue, okay? There are very many things involved in this discussion. A parent isn't going to admit and say, I didn't attend the meeting when this was discussed. Yes, they did send me a message, but I didn't read my text. They're not going to tell you that. They are going to tell you the end product of it, I don't know, which is true.
Which is it?
But they don't tell you why they don't know, okay? The government is not mad. Believe me. When it comes to these matters, there may be other faults, but it isn't as though they're not clear about what they want to do. They are clear.
All right. From the government's point of view, the government actually has said that there was a lot of public participation and that they did go around the country training 901 teachers in terms of what they were going to do, in terms of the information they were going to then share. I wish they hadn't
mentioned that figure.
They did, unfortunately.
Because when you mention the figure, then we ask, how many teachers do we have in this country?
Exactly. Now, you want to say 107,901. Now, how many teachers do we have around the country? Now, KNUT, as one body, said that they were not subjected to public participation, and they actually are part of the National Steering Committee, or they have representation in the National Steering Committee. So it became a tussle of words between the government and the groups like KUPPET and KNUT, who said, look, it's not enough, it's not adequate. So are we looking at specifically politics coming out of those groups and saying, here's our chance to take a stab at the government? Or were there really genuine sentiments?
There are a number of stakeholders in this.
Yeah.
Right?
Genuine sentiment saying that, look, we are not ready for this thing.
The stakeholders here are the government, of course, the students, the teachers, and the parents. All right. So we've heard the voices from the government and from the teachers. Of course, we haven't had much of feedback from the students. We're going to be hearing it as in form of the assessment, but also we haven't heard anything from parents. Because it appears like, a lot of parents do not really understand exactly.
They seem confused.
They
That's
seem confused. Yes, that's the
But
sentiment.
why is there
And
resistance from the teachers? That's what I'm interested in.
From the union of teachers.
Why the resistance? Is it purely based on the fact that can we delay this? We don't understand this. Why the resistance, CT?
The resistance is because whatever explanation was given, many considered inadequate. Meaning, here you are grappling with this old curriculum.
You've not even fully understood the monster that it was.
Yes, you're training. You've been training students from the time they were in standard 1 to sort of like undergo this process. There's this new process being introduced. You have to juggle this. Then comes in the textbooks. Okay, new textbooks that you're being given, and you're looking at the content. You're looking at the old. Too much is happening at the same time. That's what we normally call confusion.
Too many balls up in the air.
Yes, that's the confusion.
Well, let's open up the phone lines in the next hour and find out what parents actually understand about this competency-based curriculum. Many of us don't even know competency-based CBC. What do parents understand about the CBC? 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. You are in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, Spice FM, 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life.
All right, let's look at the situation on the roads. Coming around to 7 o'clock, and we still have issues on Mombasa Road because it's moving extremely slowly, just past Cabanas and heading towards the General Motors section of things. Kiambu Road is flowing very smoothly at this time, but it slows down, snaking all the way when joining the superhighway, but clear after Pangani Underpass and along Muranga Road until the CBD. All right, Namanga Road at Kitengela, there is traffic. It's flowing in both directions right now. Magadi Road, just as we had talked about earlier, because of the situation we saw around Multimedia University, that has been cleared up, but the traffic is telling its toll. All right, Wayaki Way is going to give us the usual issues this morning because of the construction on the A104, but as we head out past Westlands, it's not so much of an issue right now. Langata Road also will have its issues because of the spill-off from Magadi Road. But let's see how the situation changes as we go along. Give us a call on 0719-012-600 and let's see how we can keep you moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Njeri Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to...
Kenya's biggest conversation, Spice FM, 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi. We are also streaming live on Facebook, that's Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on Twitter, Spice FM KE on YouTube as well. So we're discussing the competency-based curriculum this morning, and we're asking ourselves, do parents actually understand what CBC is all about? I've got a parent on the line, Nelson in Syokimau. Good morning. Hello, Nelson.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Morning, Nelson.
Good morning.
Awesome. Now, I've been listening to the discussion this morning, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding from people who do not have children in the system. And like one of you said, a lot of meetings have been called in schools to help parents understand what's going on about these assessments. And a lot of parents do not attend, so therefore they do not understand.
Right.
In our school, we've been called for meetings. I think in the last 1 year, we've attended like maybe 4 or 5 meetings. And and in this term, we've had 2 meetings to help us understand what the assessment is all about. And these assessments are not like KCPE. By no means. They're not putting children under any pressure. We've seen the sample papers. It's the same kind of tests or continuous assessments that kids go through in school any other day.
Okay. Nelson, if I can ask you, for your understanding and also for the understanding of those who may not really know what the situation is, because, we're going to have that situation, whether we like it or not. There will be some who will fall off the wagon in terms of the information having reached them or how it was communicated to them and how they understood it. Now, from your understanding, come Monday, I'm assuming you have a child who will take this assessment on Monday?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Yes, I do.
From your understanding, what then happens after this assessment? Then what do they do with the results of this of this assessment?
The assessments are going to be carried out in the schools by the teachers of those schools. There are no external invigilators coming in like we have in KCPE, right? Then the results are going to be uploaded into a portal to help the government understand the absorption of the curricula, and 2, the children's understanding of the material they're supposed to have learned.
So now basically what this...
So there's no ranking. There's no ranking like we had in KCPE that your child is number 1, the other one is the last, this one has failed, this one is going on. There's nothing like that.
So this assessment is purely for the purposes of the government to understand where children currently stand, then for the development of further curriculum.
Exactly.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So just from what other parents are saying, are you comfortable? Are you comfortable with what we have so far in terms of the information that has been spread, in terms of the information that has been put out there for them to understand that where we are going is a better way of doing things when it comes to the learning of our children?
Personally, I, for one, having been a product of the 844 system, I'm very excited about this system.
Right.
Because this system is teaching children how to apply the education that they learn.
Right.
Practically. I don't know whether you heard last week all schools were going around cleaning markets. Right? And from that exercise, they were able to draw, for example, one of the learning points was that they're supposed to come up with ways that they can reuse the waste.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And come up with an entrepreneurship project on what they can do with that recycled waste. And it was very exciting for us in the school and even at home, watching the kids come up with very, very creative ideas of what they can do with the waste and how they can make money. Yeah. But in the 844 system, we were not allowed to think. You were drilled and made to cram for an exam that you sit after 8 years, right? And the focus was that one exam. And what we're having today is a product of people who cannot think for themselves, right? And that's why you're having people who have had first-class honors and are jobless.
Right.
They cannot think for themselves. Yeah?
Okay.
But with this system, I'm seeing a very deliberate effort to teach children to think. Yeah, and engage the teachers and come up with fresh ideas. And I think this is what the country needs right now.
Okay.
Actually, we needed it like 20 years ago.
We needed to get into it a long time ago.
Yes.
So how do you understand by the resistance by teachers? And that's what we're trying to understand this morning. Why were teachers resisting this the implementation of the CBC?
I think the reason why teachers are resisting it, and sorry for saying it this, because I'll say it as I see it, is because of the work that it will involve.
Yeah.
before teachers they'd come and give a test, come Monday, come Thursday. I like, for one, the primary school I was in, we used to have tests every other week.
Yeah.
So there was hardly any learning, right? So you given homework, tons of homework. So a teacher will walk into class for 5 minutes, give homework. So you go sit down in the textbook and read. And then the next week he comes with a test that you guys sit, and all he does is mark.
Right.
So this is more involving.
So a teacher could afford not to be in school for the whole week. Right? But now with this system, a teacher has to be in class and they have to teach.
Yes.
And they have to know their material.
And they don't like this, and so this is one of the things that we can see as a resistance to the system, not because the system is necessarily a bad, or the new curriculum is a bad thing, but it's going to actually demand that they do their job.
Exactly. For example, if you look at even a simple case as the report form, right?
Yep.
Now they do not have a report form; they have a report on the child,
Yeah.
and it's very detailed. And a teacher has to understand each and every child before they can sit down
So
and
they can
do that
write a report on them.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like now for my grade 3 child, last time the report was 4 pages long.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's an essay.
And very detailed. Exactly. Very detailed, because, for example, it will take things like, for example, reading, and they assess in detail whether that child can read and how they think that child should be helped to improve how to read.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. And even other soft skills, like, for example, if a school has swimming facilities, whether that child can swim and at what level that swimming they're swimming. Yeah, so there's a lot of work that the teachers have to put in to deliver this system, and I think that
that's where the resistance comes in.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Nelson. Thank you for calling in from Syokimau.
You're welcome.
And now, because it's a new system, we really cannot wish your child well in the Monday exam. One of the things that's also changing is that the success card industry is going to flop.
It's also going to flop.
Asante, have a good day, and thank you for getting into the Situation Room. Well, the phone lines this morning, 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. We are discussing the competency-based curriculum that's been rolled out up to grade 3, and the students are going to undergo an assessment on Monday. And we've just heard from a parent, that's Nelson, calling in from Syokimau and saying, well, I completely and wholeheartedly support this new system. What are your thoughts on this? 0719-012-600. CT, as Nelson was speaking, I saw you nodding at some instances. You were shaking your head. In instances, you looked pensive. What was going through your mind?
Well, he explained something that I touched on very exhaustively, and he gave a live example of him as a parent, and he compared it with him as a student. I was nodding because he was getting the heart of the matter as someone who he's involved in the process. He has children in this system, and he has clearly attended the meetings that were called by the school. So this is one parent who actually understands.
Right.
Yes.
What level of involvement is expected from parents? What can they do about the curriculum if they don't like it? Why the involvement in the first instance?
Parents are never really consulted when curriculums are formed. I don't recall a time when parents have ever been consulted.
Okay, but they're supposed to be part and parcel of the change.
They are supposed to be part and parcel of understanding the change. That is their participation.
And
they come at the implementation stage.
Yes.
Purely for promotion, also to make sure that their children are, when they come on the home front, actually falling in as well.
You know, when we talk about representation and we talk about parents, we forget that teachers are also parents.
Indeed, true.
Yeah, so
true.
When you're talking about representation, it isn't as though the parents are not represented.
They are indeed.
They are represented.
0719-012-600. We're taking your feedback this morning. I've got Lena in Nairobi. Good morning, Lena.
Hi.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Situation Room. How are you?
I'm very fine. Huh?
Are you a teacher, or a parent, or a government officer?
I'm
Could be all three.
Yeah? I'm a parent. I have a child in grade 2. And the sentiments that parents are not aware of what is happening, I think it's from an ignorant parent, sorry to say. Because, for example, my school, like the gentleman said, we have been called so many times to go to the school, and they explain to us, what is entailed and what we are supposed to do and our involvement. And even this thing of sending homework with children. For example, in my school where my child goes, a child can come home with homework. And if they do it, for example, with a domestic manager and go to school, they're asked who you did the homework with. Even if the homework is right, and it's not the parent that did the homework with them, they're told to go and redo it with a parent. So that the parent is involved in what the child is doing. So that's when you get the progress report. In my child's school, it's called a progress. It's almost like 10 pages that you get. You're able to understand why my child is not doing very well in mathematics, why my child is not doing very well in environmental studies. And I think this is the best curriculum that can be there. I also do 844, and I think I'm usually impressed or other things my daughter can be able to pick here and there. So I think if parents who are in the system, or the kids are doing the new system, start to understand it with the teachers and the system, how it's operating, I don't think parents, number one, would resist. Number two, as the gentleman said, resistance from teachers is due to the workload that is going to be there. Because it's not about only the numbers and everything. They go to the markets to do shop. I remember when I was in primary, we set up a kiosk at the back of the class, and we were taught about money. The same thing has been introduced. Right now, they differentiate. They know 1,000 is a lot of money, 10 shillings is. They are able to pick these small skills that, if, for example, you give someone in high school 1,000 shillings, they probably right now just going to waste it. But these kids are taught what exactly they're supposed to do with every day of their life.
Okay.
So, me, I support the system. I think people need to just understand it even more. And even if it can be introduced up to grade 7, the current class 7, I think it will be very good for this nation.
Thank you very much, Lina.
Yes.
Kiprotich?
Hello.
Hello. Good morning, Kiprotich.
Morning, madam.
This is the Situation Room. You are with Ndu Oko, Jerry Thorne, C.T. Muga, and I'm Eric Latif. You're calling in from Chwele this morning, Kiprotich.
Yes.
I would like to assume that you're a parent.
Exactly.
Are you also a teacher?
I'm not a teacher. I'm a parent.
Okay.
Yeah, I have the following question. I've had the discussion from those other guys, but I have an issue which lingers in me. My child is in grade 3.
Okay.
I have a daughter in grade 3, and I'm wondering if we have had I've heard from them. They have talked about maybe ignorance on the side of the parent, and the ignorance comes as a result of lack of information. So if you've had a representative who has gone somewhere to represent you, who does not come back to give the same information to you, of course you will remain ignorant. Second question, what is going to happen? What is going to be used in order to get those who will enter universities, or are the universities going to be closed so that we have a uniform kind of colleges or training? Because what will be the criteria to get these learners into these different levels? Because we have different very.
We lost him. He's gone.
Well, it's an interesting question he poses, but it also tells you how he understands this particular system.
CBC.
Yes, exactly. You see, with understanding, there is an absence of adequate information, and there's a reluctance to accept the information that you've been given. And there's sometimes just an absence of information. But in this case, the information has been there. It's not one of these situations where you're talking about a complete absence of information where you actually can't know. It's there. And even if you were not communicated to and you heard about it, if you went to the schools, they would explain it to you.
So Kiprotich is talking about sending a representative to the meetings, and then the representative coming and misinforming, or
no.
broken telephone kind of.
No. Doesn't give you back the information.
Doesn't give you
back the information as they received it, however they have received it.
There's something I want us to touch on that I thought was quite important. Maybe we should expound on it. This idea that teachers don't want to do the work. Does that then make us ask the question of the quality of teachers we have? Will this system be successful if you have resistance because teachers don't want to do the work? And is the work overload too much? Is it a valid concern from the teacher's perspective? I think that's important to discuss, because I keep saying for a good system, teachers have to be happy. We've got to empower the teachers. If they do feel this is too much, are those valid concerns?
You see, it's too much from what? If you listen to what Nelson and Lena are saying, where they see the teachers coming from is from a point where they
have to do nothing.
The other system allowed and facilitated absenteeism to a great extent. That is according to them. And in this one, absenteeism is actually not going to be possible until maybe they are able to play the system. But at the very beginning, they are not able to play the system.
So do we then start to question the quality of teachers in the system?
No. It's not the quality of teachers. The teachers who teach in our private schools and public schools are trained in the same institutions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The issue that we should ask is, why is it that private schools have mushroomed this country as they have? When we were offered free primary education, there was a huge influx of students into schools. So where previously you had a classroom of, say, 30 students or 40, you now had 60 or even 70. Now it becomes next to impossible to actually manage and effectively teach such a class at that level. Even if it was a university class, it would be near impossible to teach such a class effectively, because to teach you need to assess. It becomes impossible, and it's not the only class you teach. Every other class that you teach has those numbers. So that's number one. And then there was the issue of content. Just the amount of information that the teachers were supposed to understand and get the student to understand. The workload was stupendous. It was a lot of work. Simple as that.
So what can be done, as opposed to us going into this knowing this is what's going to happen? It could actually make the whole thing fall apart, or we won't optimize this new system if we don't deal with the teachers. If they feel there's a workload that they can't handle, maybe more teachers, bringing more teachers into the system so that there's 2 teachers per class, a teacher and an assistant teacher perhaps.
You see, you've actually gotten the heart of the matter. We are in this conundrum where we are told of the hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of people who are trained as teachers and can't get jobs. And yet, we have teachers who are overburdened with work. You see, this is where the problem arises. It's the same thing you're told, that our hospitals don't have enough doctors, and yet you're told they're doctors who are qualified and do not have jobs.
Right. So government needs to increase their spending in the education sector.
It actually has to. It has to, because part of the problem, again, you see, our education system is also assisted. We do get aid, we do get grants, we do get help. But somehow this doesn't seem to be enough, because ideally, classrooms, whether they're just 40 students or 30, you need more than one teacher.
Right.
It's important to have, not an assistant teacher, a teacher. You need more than one teacher in that class. The Scandinavian countries that Jerry is referring to tend to have 3 teachers. This is true. Yes.
So did they not take this into account as they were developing this curriculum? Was it an oversight? Is it intentional?
I think what they did is that they looked at the subjects of this curriculum, which are the learners. I think at some point the drivers of the same curriculum were not taken into consideration to the extent that they should have been, which is now what we're talking about, being the teachers. The teachers then, in terms of what they would be required to do in order for this to be a success. And maybe that is what we're looking at in terms of now that has come as a bit of a failure, because then we've not been able to say, look, this is what you used to do as a teacher. This is what then you will be required to do in this, in order for us to get to that. Because what they're asking that the student, or the learner, what they're asking that the learner now be able to do at the end of this curriculum, having come out of it, is not possible for them to do on their own.
CT, as an educator, I'd be interested to know about how they've coordinated this. Do you think now teacher training is changing simultaneously, or are they sticking to that, what they've still been doing? Because that will then be another problem in the future.
The teaching skills that you actually require usually introduce you to very, very many forms of teaching methods. It's not one. So that's why you'll find somebody who teaches in the 844 system can go to a GCSE system and just teach. So it's not as though you require new training. What you need to do is just understand that particular curriculum. And once you understand it, then the very, very same principles are applied. When you talk about the learning processes, this is also taught to people who want to be educators. You are taught. And then there are various forms of teaching, there are various forms of... All these examples that we keep talking about, these things are taught. So you do know. And then you... Remember, it's not for lack of knowledge here. No, this is not what we're talking about. You are talking about the reality of the situation in a classroom in a public school in Kenya. By and large, it is burdensome to the teacher, and by extension, it's burdensome to the student, and then burdensome to the parent. So a lot of these reactions have to do with the condition as has been. So people are responding knowing if this was a burden and there's something new, the knee-jerk reaction is to reject it. Because essentially you feel somebody's adding a burden on top of the burden you already have.
And it actually does, think about it like this as well. It actually does require thinking and expressing on the part of the teachers, who in most cases actually went through this previous system of the 844. It requires them to think and express themselves coming from a system where they didn't ever do that.
That's the irony of it all, isn't it?
I look at my child and how she expresses herself through this. You can see it's coming out. The new system is, the new curriculum is actually mushrooming. And they're having to do things that she didn't do, last year. She didn't do, and she enjoys it.
Now she's
as
being
an example.
heard.
She enjoys it. She can express herself. She can give an opinion. Somebody can ask a question and she can give an answer. She can say something that she thinks, and be able to express it without being told that, number one, you cannot answer to authority and things like that.
Or just answer yes or no.
Or just answer yes or no, or keep quiet. So now these learners are being asked to do something that they've previously not been encouraged to do, and the custodians of this curriculum, who are the teachers, are also coming from the backdrop of a system whereby they never knew anything like this.
But by and large as well, I think because this is a national project, it's something that is critically important to the country. The Ministry of Education should have done a lot more in terms of awareness creation. Don't just depend on school meetings. Also do a lot more. Use the media to spread the message, spread the information. Why is it that we've not seen any kind of advertisements running on media explaining this is CBC? This is how many years again? 26333, right? So what is it? What is 26? What is 333?
Eric,
and how does it go?
We recently had a census. Did we not have the same
We
debate
spoke about the
today?
same thing.
Yes.
The importance of communication. So that you bring everybody on board. There are people who are parents now. There are people who will be parents next year. And those who will be parents next year have not attended all these meetings that you're talking about. But they'll be taking their child into this new system. At least it would be good if they understood that I'm taking my child into this system and this is what this new system is all about.
Sorry, Jerry, go ahead.
I was going to say, when parents take their kids to, say, GCSE schools, they don't go and learn and find out what the curriculum is and understand in depth.
They do.
You've just got an idea of, it's like this.
Sometimes they don't give that allowance, Eric.
Okay.
No, my mum didn't.
Okay.
She had no idea, no clue what I was doing at school, and it seemed okay. This parent involvement, I'm wondering what... She trusted them. Okay, so what are you saying? The parents don't have trust in the government and the curriculum developers? I'm wondering why the parent involvement is so important. And we're assuming it is. We're talking about it as it is.
So assume that IGCSE was a new thing, right? Before your mom took you to that school, she'd have sought more information. She'd have wanted to understand exactly where am I taking my child to. So it's a new thing.
So it's not tried. It hasn't been tried and
It hasn't been
tested.
tried.
Okay.
So because you want that, you want to get everybody on board, explain as widely as possible.
Eric, you have to take into account a reality of just the differences in generations when it comes to parenting. Okay.
Yep.
If someone was my parent in their time, the education system was trusted, as you correctly put it.
Right.
People went to school, full stop.
Teachers were 100%
and what the
respected.
teacher said was law, full stop.
They were 100% respected.
This democratic space that we're talking about
wasn't there.
It was limited democratic space. Okay.
In fact, the parents believed the teacher was the one who would be able to say, and they stuck with
the
it.
teachers and the students. You knew it was better to have a teacher sort out the matter than to report you.
There you go.
Because if they reported you, you are dead.
We've been seeing cartoons going around. In the 80s, you would go and the teacher and the parent would be on one side asking you, explain these marks that you got. in the 2000s, the teacher and the students on that side asking the teacher, explain the marks that you've given my child. It's changed.
It's changed. So, 844 in many, many ways was a burden. Still is a burden. People have got used to it.
But it's still,
It is. The reason why parents got involved was this. Your child comes home. At 10 o'clock at night, the child is still doing homework. You will get involved.
And a lot of it.
And you're wondering, what are these people studying for?
And,
I mean, in all
and then
honesty,
there's an exam where your child comes, and after doing all that, you're told that your child actually is rated number 40 out of 45. And you're wondering.
But
what
all
was
the
all of
studying
this
my
about?
child does, yes.
Yes.
And then they wake up at 5. I mean, there are many, many questions and people wondered, when do these children ever grow up? It wasn't for the standard 7s and 8s. A standard 2 child carrying a rucksack, you'd actually
laden with books.
Yes, you'd assume that they've left home, they're going on a long journey, and yet they're actually going to school. So these are the things that were related to the 844 system. So and it's an education system. So when you say you have an education system, what people relate to is what they know.
It's what they know.
And they don't have positive memories of it. So the knee-jerk reaction is reject this thing first before we even get to understand what it is.
What it is all about.
Would still like to hear what you think about this new curriculum, the competency-based curriculum. They're going to be doing an assessment for grade 3s on Monday next week. And I'd like to know what you think about it. 0719-012-600. We're also live streaming on Facebook at Spice FM KE. Twitter, Spice FM KE. We are also live streaming on YouTube, Spice FM KE, and also on www.spicefm.co.ke. Well, it's 7:30. Competency-based curriculum is what we're discussing, and then we'll smoothly also just go into looking at our value system as a country. Do we have a unified value system? Should we have some? Can we say these are our values as Kenyans? Well, good morning.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelogue. Travelogue is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelogue, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelogue, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
98.7 Spice FM, Mombasa. Traffic.
If you are superstitious, it's Friday the 13th, and there has happened to be another accident along Magadi Road this morning. And so what was an issue this morning has been greatly compounded by now another one. And so we're going to have some issues, and it's going to feed off into Langata Road coming into the city center. All right, the construction of the bridge at the railway line at the junction that goes to Nairobi Chapel Ngong Road causes a lot of traffic, and we have cars being directed to one lane. So we have two lanes being morphed into one, and that is causing quite a number of issues along the way. We're going to have an issue on Thika Road today. As you know, there was a closure of a certain part of the highway leading towards the Allsops junction, so be prepared for that. And people have camped in the jam, and that's what we've been told so far. Westlands, we have the same issues around Wayaki Way heading out towards the Sarit Center roundabout because of the construction going there. Traffic is one lane for now. It's Friday, it's going to be busy, but this is the situation on the roads. If you find an alternate route, please share. 0719-012-600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room, C.T. Muga, Jerry Thorne, Ndu Oko, and I'm Eric Latif. Our frequencies around the country: 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi. We are streaming live on www.spicefm.co.ke, also on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, and the conversation is happening on Twitter as well, Spice FM KE. Our telephone number this morning, 0719-012-600. What do you understand about the competency-based curriculum? Are you prepared for the assessment that's going to happen on Monday? Actually, we're posing this question to the parents because we understand, of course, we know the teachers are in class, the pupils are in class, the government officers are on their way to work. Maybe the government officers can also call in 0719-012-600 as we wind up on this topic.
Might have some teachers on their day off. It'll be good to hear from the teachers too. So encourage them
on their day off.
Encourage them to call in. There's something we haven't touched on that I find very interesting. Who designed this curriculum? I understand it wasn't designed by Kenyans. You as an educator, CT, you know the purpose of education and a curriculum and what it looks to inculcate. So if we're getting foreigners to design...
Who said it was designed by foreigners?
I think what Jerry is referring to is every time we have some policy matters, it's not just a question of education. We bring in expert advice.
Right.
We bring in consultants. We always do. People whose work it is to understand this. When we were structuring our constitution, we brought in experts, people who understand the constitutions. So with this, yes, experts were brought in, but experts are brought in to work within a framework of what the country wants and what it needs. We are the ones who tell the experts, this is what we would like, this is how we would like it. And so they assist us in putting the pieces together so that we end up with something that can actually work. The reason why, again, we call in is because these are people who've done this before. And so they have a clear idea of what works and what doesn't work.
Right.
Yes, but it isn't as though we took some system wholesale and imported it into the country and brought people,
best practice,
yes, who brought it by ship or by cargo plane into the country and said, okay, here's what you ordered, here it is. No. I'm sure the discussions took place over a long, long period of time. Yes.
The Kenya Institute for Curriculum Development, KICD, what used to be called the Kenya Institute of Education, was central to this. The development, well, it's their job. Institute for Curriculum Development. So it was them who developed this. And of course, that body has education experts, people who have studied education, people who have actually also gone abroad. And
who understand education matters.
Yes, and they've made those trips that MCAs make as well.
Benchmarking.
Benchmarking, and they've done the benchmarking properly. So they came and introduced this. And of course, they were also reviewing what they were implementing earlier, the 844. So I'm sure it was quite involving.
You know what we often react to is the politicization of these things. We don't have a shortage of excellent planners. We don't have a shortage of excellent policymakers. We have them. And they come up with wonderful, wonderful things. If implemented correctly, it would really help the country. But when it is politicized in the implementation stage, then you have the furor. Then you have all this mudslinging and questioning and doubt and all this. But if you're talking about the solidity of the thinking behind it, it's solid. It's not fairly solid. It is solid. Yes, because one of the things that educators look at is they actually consider the times and they look at what the country needs. They look at that entire spectrum and say, which direction are we heading and where ought we?
Where should we be going?
Yes, and that is how they purpose it. Now, we are reacting to the implementation process. And in reacting to it, we actually forget the content of what is being implemented completely. Yes.
Evans calling in from Kisumu. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Yes, I'm Evans from Kisumu, as you said.
Yes.
and I want to give my thoughts on the CBC.
Yes.
I know not so much about the CBC so far, but I support it because I'm one of the people who were wasted by the 844
system.
Yeah, I started for my KCS in 2015. No skills, no anything. Look at me now. What if I went through the CBC, the current one? I could have been somewhere now.
What do you feel was wrong with the 844, sorry?
844, there were no skills that the teachers were equipping us with. It was 100% theory. Yeah. So I'm in support of this. If it can help the kids, then I support it. And as much as I know not so much about it.
Okay.
Anything but 844. Basically, that's what I hear you saying, Evans.
Sorry?
I'm hearing you saying anything but 844.
No, I support anything if provided that it
not
equips
844.
the kids with the knowledge, not 844.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Have a good day, Evans. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. What do you think about the CBC? And do you understand it? What's your understanding of the CBC? Right? Those are the questions we're asking.
I heard Ndu, she was giving a list of what it's based on, and one of them was citizenship. The idea of being, I suppose, an upright citizen.
I should like that.
Do we even have a national identity as Kenyans for us to be imbuing this into the kids?
To say that this is
what is our identity in the first
as
place?
Kenyans?
Citizenship.
Apart from...
oh no, here we go.
No, well, I'm just asking. I actually haven't asked, and here we go.
No, I was waiting. Okay, go ahead.
Is it the geographical location of our birth and then the identification that follows? You are asking for characteristics that would distinguish a Kenyan from other Africans.
Yeah, a sense of Kenyanese, so to speak. What is our identity as Kenyans? What unifies us? What are we pushing when we say citizenship? I'll give you an example. Say in the GCSE system, they're very big on their history. So you spend a lot of time identifying with King Henry VIII for no reason whatsoever. So they're very big on the monarchy. Of course, that's well planned so that you accept the monarchy, for instance, and it's contrived and it's actually quite sinister. Now, what are we looking to embed in these kids in terms of citizenship? If we don't have a Kenyan identity, a unified Kenyan identity, I'd be very interested to know what their perspective was when they were putting this curriculum together, when they said citizenship.
Well, I think it was then to have some kind of pride in the country that that you come from. But I think that was kind of difficult to say what then is the Kenyan identity, because I remember many years ago when I had come here, and there was a time where there was this whole drive to try and get a national dress.
Yes.
And the question that came in is like, okay, to get what our national dress is, then we must now understand what are those things that we then believe in, and how can that be represented then in what we wear. And it was quite difficult to come up with something, because even when something had been come up with, I don't think that, do we even know what that is today?
We didn't connect with it.
That outfit disappeared,
was the
and there was no connection with
won
it.
that award partly. The designer, many argued, wasn't even Kenyan.
Oh dear, good Lord, there we go.
There we go.
So there was no buy-in, and that's one of the reasons why we didn't even have that, is because we do not have a national identity.
So that cannot translate into then what you want.
What is Nigeria's identity? What would you say, since you've experienced another culture altogether, and you've experienced and observed Kenyan culture?
Well, definitely along those lines of our history, the history of the country in terms of where we came from and how we were able to, and how citizens were able to rule, because we had, in the north and the south, there are threads that still run even till today of how the administration was done, in terms of how trade was done, in terms of how people operated from one to the other. We had the huge Usman Danfodio in the north, and we had the Oba and the Obi kingdoms in the south.
Kingdoms in the south. So that's a heritage
it
right
was
there.
Definitely a heritage that people still hold on to now. And you can see that run through in the food, how that is prepared and how it is cooked, in the dress, in the different tribes. Every tribe has a dress that is
a hallmark,
of them, and you will know.
Oh, every Nigerian tribe has a dress.
Oh, absolutely, and mind you, we have 342.
I actually know Nigerian dress.
Oh, you see.
In fact,
every tribe has a different dress, and they're able to identify with that specifically.
Eric has just given you a sample of the Kenyan identity.
Which is?
We don't know very much.
So you see, it's
But
built,
the attires
it's
that you
built-
look at and you can tell this is West African, this most
and
probably
you would
Nigerian.
be able to know, and you'd actually find that in
There's some flamboyance in it. I've seen the
But no,
weddings and the
it's free flowing
attire,
garb
Don't
the
listen to these
headgear.
headgear.
Ask
It
them
speaks through.
the
It speaks
distinguishing
through in
feature
the dress.
between what you consider Nigerian or Cameroonian or
Or
Senegalese.
Ghanaian.
Tell me the difference. Or Ghanaian. What's the difference? Wonderful Kenyans. What's the difference? I have no clue. personally.
I think Ghanaian is multicolored, the way I see it.
And Nigerian is not.
And Nigerian is, well, it's still the free-flowing long robe and a headgear.
And
for
Cameroonian?
the women, there's the very flamboyant headgear.
Well,
hats.
I
interestingly
don't know
enough,
about
what you're
Cameroonian.
talking about is the gele, and the gele is actually only a southern Nigerian headgear.
Right.
Gele does not feature in northern Nigeria.
So the
At
headgear
all.
is only for the south.
And you can't. It's not only for the
Eric.
south. It is a southern part of
Eric,
dress.
Eric,
it is a southern,
Eric,
and if it doesn't resonate,
Seek for guidance in this matter here.
I am.
Yes,
I am.
yes. Please carry on.
so you
I am.
find
I'm
that
actually learning today. I didn't know that all of them had different attire.
Oh, different, definitely. You'll find that in Delta State, for example, the double wrapper that we wear is actually threaded by women who sat at the floor of the obese kingdom, and that was their trade. And that is what they sold. They sold priestly robes, and that was what they did. And that it translated through then into the culture of the people of the Delta State, of the Northern Delta. They have the Southern Delta, which has a different kind of thread. And you'll be able to look and tell this is where this person is from
see.
because of what they wear. And
Is
what
there,
they...
is there one that can be considered a national dress?
No, there's no one national dress of Nigeria, but
National
it's a consolidation
of a number
tribes.
of-
Yeah,
of-
and you'll
of-
find that you have something in Nigeria called Wazobia. Wazobia is not a word; but it has been coined. The three main languages of Nigeria: Wazobia.
But
Wa
now-
in Yoruba is, and it all means to come. Wa
Oh, come.
is come in Yoruba. Bia is come in Igbo.
And
Zo is Bia in Hausa, and those are the three main languages of the country. So you have that
Wazobia.
Wazobia threads through the country.
So it's basically
in
come.
Yes, come together.
Okay.
Yeah, come together.
Come all ye.
And of
So
course, Nigerians have been able to package themselves and actually export some of their culture. We listen to a lot of Nigerian music, and I'm not just talking about in Kenya. You walk into a nightclub in London, New York, and they're playing Nigerian music. I'm not sure what it's called. I know there's a guy called Burna Boy or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different.
Let's-
It flows through high life. That kind of
Fela Kuti.
Oh yeah, Fela Kuti, very
Yes.
political,
Yeah.
very political. Now that's what I'm asking. We as Kenyans, do we have a national identity? Traditions, culture, a cohesive one. We seem to belong more to our tribes than we do to the nation per
nation
se. When you were
of
talking
Kenya.
about the Mugumo tree, I could identify with that. There's an element of symbolism. We don't have anything Kenyan that is symbolic that I could tie myself to. It used to be maybe KICC on postcards. You could, in terms of architecture or. But really, do we have a national identity? I'd like us to talk a little bit about that.
because this is one of the
Let's
things
talk
that we're
about
asking these
identity
learners. We're asking these learners in
and
this new
values at the same
curriculum to
time.
point towards that. We're asking these learners in this new curriculum to point towards one of these tenets, which is citizenship, and to say that citizenship of the particular, because this curriculum you could actually lift it and apply it in any other country.
True.
So if you're doing that, and we're saying citizenship as one of these 7 that they're asking, just as an example, what have we done to lay the background for them to actually hold on to some elements of citizenship? Does it even exist?
I think thinking across all our cultures, all our tribes, and all our communities, in the olden days, we had something that was threading common across all these tribes. And I'd like to just break them down into 2. One was respect. Respect was embedded in the community from the very beginning. A child is brought up knowing to respect people, respect your elders, respect people around you. You know how to respect old men, you know how to respect women, you know how to respect nursing mothers, you know how to respect warriors. Old men as well had some sense of respect. You know how to respect your fellows. You know how to respect the warriors in your community. You know how to respect the children in your community. So that respect cut across, and it created some sort of value because you felt, because I respect this person, there are some things I cannot do or I cannot do in front of them or with them. Because I respect an older person, there are some things I cannot do when in their presence. Because I respect a younger person, there's some things I cannot do or say in their presence.
So you think
and that
we've
cut
lost that?
across... We have sort of lost it, and I'll come and tell you why. The second one is a sense of community. There was a very strong sense of community. That thing that we were saying, that a child is brought up by the community? It was a form of checks and balances. And the checks and balances are, it doesn't matter where you are, you belong to that community. It doesn't matter whose child this is, you have a right to show them the right way, to discipline them, to show them the right way. And not just for disciplining, it's also setting an example for them. Because this child is not yours doesn't mean that you can talk and do any manner of things because si mtoto wako huyo anakuona. No. It is your child.
So that sense of the life skills that they're talking about, to be brought back, and probably we're looking at something that should be brought back.
We bring them back. Those two especially. One is the respect, and the second with the community, it created a sense of checks and balances for me. And because of that, you would find that you would not misbehave. You would not do certain things because you know that you're answerable to the community. Jerry, you've been talking about something, shame-based versus?
Guilt-based.
Guilt-based. So it had both things, the shame-based and guilt-based, but also it had a system of rewards. So you'd feel ashamed of doing something in front of your juniors. You'd feel guilty of doing something in front of your seniors, but also there was a reward system. Because you've behaved well in the community, we elevate you to become an elder. We elevate you to become the chief. We elevate you to a certain position, a certain hierarchy in the community. Because we feel that you do not live to certain ideals of the community, we sort of shun you, we downgrade you. And so that creates that checks and balances. Right now, the reason why you may see somebody overlapping in traffic is because they don't feel accountable to anybody else on that road. Look at me, I look at you, I give you the look, the eye. Unaniangalia, utadu. That utadu thing is because we have lost that sense of community, of belonging, of being answerable, accountability.
You speak about it as though we were villagers then. That's how I've imagined it, and as you've told this story. And I want to move from that perspective because I think it's the urbanization, global influence, and capitalism and all those new systems and structures that have interrupted our value system, and we haven't been deliberate about it. So we've embraced and espoused other values that we see come with capitalism without having cemented other internal values that can come with capitalism as well. So, for instance, we've embraced the idea of wealth acquisition without taking into account philanthropy, for instance. So the West morphed into this and evolved into capitalism and who they are as a society very gradually.
And took away
whereas
what
with
we
us,
had.
it was imposed on us. It was imposed on us, and our structures, even societal structures you talk about being elevated to chief, the setups were working for us, but they were disrupted, and we've come into this, I would say we're still in a transitional period, but we haven't been deliberate, and we're allowing a lot of factors to come in. I think, for instance, with globalization and media and the way we ingest media, foreign media, we're ingesting a lot of ideas that perhaps might be at conflict with who we are in the society that we are.
And then we've adopted this attitude that everything else that was there before is old, is archaic, is
our beliefs and assumptions and expectations were demonized intentionally by the colonialists, our religion and so on.
Backward.
We keep talking about value systems, and Derek, that's what you're really talking about, as is Njeri. And if you actually even try to understand this concept, you will actually find that where we were, Njeri, on this one, you are spot on and then some.
I always am.
Yes,
darling.
okay. You why I say you're spot on is because the very things that we cherish, and Eric really waxed very eloquently on this one here. And I was listening because it made sense. This was, as you correctly put it, disrupted. Now, what is interesting is, when you talk about philanthropy, we didn't need to be philanthropic because it was part and parcel of our culture. This issue of ensuring that everyone is looked after, that's what we
Widows
did.
and so on,
Yes, we
absolutely.
didn't need to have foundations to do this. No.
Or one person to look after
the
the others.
community was the foundation. It was done. Okay? That was the social fabric allowed for this. Now, the West, as you say correctly, have gone full circle with the advancement, the glorification of materialism and what have you. And then they've come back to the human element. You see, what we lost in the process was our humanity.
Yeah.
That's what we lost. What the West keeps selling with their philanthropy and their grants and the what have you is what they lost as well. So this is them trying to gain it. The only problem is they commercialize it. There's always something tied to it. It's never quite free. It's never really intended to help you without them gaining more than you do. That is the misfortune. You asked about what characteristic we've evolved into. One of the things that Kenyans are known for is Kenyans are enterprising. It's a Kenyan trait. Enterprising to a degree that is actually amazing. Now, the problem with being enterprising, if there are no checks and balances, as you put it, or if there's no moral framework within which to work, then you become a nation of hustlers. Now, I'm using the term not...
And hustlers are bad.
Yes, I'm not using it in the term that the deputy president uses it from time to time. The term hustler isn't actually a positive. It isn't positive.
No, it's a negative.
It's not a positive thing, by the way. It's not positive at all. Now, that is what people who are enterprising and do not have. The two cases we were talking about earlier on, the heist at the airstrip, Moyale, the bank,
and the one in Nairobi here.
Now, those are hustlers. When you hear of a situation where...
Or the gold scams.
Hustling. When you hear of the dam scams, dams which exist only on paper, that's hustling. It isn't a positive thing. But that is the culture. You're asking what we are, that's what we've become.
That's what we've become now.
We can relate all
so we're hustlers. That is our national identity.
We are hustlers.
Get out of here. No,
we are hustlers.
Hustler nation.
If this is where we are and we're looking at teachers, then definitely as part of this system, and looking at the CBC as something that wants to come in and turn the situation around and eventually put these learners into a system, then we need to really look at changing the system, because we're going to bring them up, we're going to put them through this curriculum, bring them back into the system and throw them and regurgitate them into a system that we are saying is value less.
You see what Eric talked about was again what you can refer to the power of example. All right, when you had community policing of children, the reason why the check and balance was not your parents. Any adult who saw you and knew your parents or might know your parents was a threat.
Was enough.
Yes, they didn't need to do anything. You just need to see them, or you need to know that they'd be there. That was the check.
And it has changed now. And here we are into
it has changed drastically.
Yeah, and so
you dare tell off someone's child. Dare.
What underpinned that behavior? Was it trust? Were we more a trusting nation that you allowed other people? Because right now nobody can tell off my child.
It was because
was it then that we trusted each other?
It was our value.
It was our
belonging to a
we were more trusting.
No,
it was belonging to a community.
Actually, we were trusting, but remember, we had shared values.
Yes.
Okay, you called us villagers. We were villagers.
Sure.
Okay, and that was our community, and the norms within those so-called villages were known. It didn't matter which part of the country you came from, but we shared those values.
Yeah.
So it didn't really matter where you were. You could easily fit in. Now, the Western culture, as you correctly put it, disrupted all this. Now, this new thing that we are still trying to figure out and we're not really sure about is what leads, and the glorification of materialism, what leads to the murders we read of. And somehow they all involve some money, some hustling.
Because even the church now, it's about prosperity and wealth acquisition.
You have a pastor in the media every other day who in the public eye goes around insulting people. In the public eye.
So this for me then is a bit worrisome and dizzying again, because then what we are doing is that we are taking in these learners, we're chewing them up, and then we're regurgitating them into a society that we're saying is valueless.
No, it's not all that negative. It's not all that
that's
negative.
the way we're making it sound.
It's all doom
and gloom. It's all doom and gloom.
The argument is the previous system more or less encouraged you to have what you call rote learning. And you are primed to simply do what you're told. Essentially, that it was conditioning. This one, we're saying you can think. Now, if you have a system such as the one we're describing, when one is allowed to think, one is allowed to question. When you're allowed to question, it means not just the immediate benefit, but the outcomes of that benefit, short, medium term, long term. A thinking mind is what brought about the evolution that Njeri keeps referring to of the West. People who are constantly thinking about these things.
It's innovation.
Yes, this thinking is what made them explorers. This thinking is what made them move from their countries to other countries.
Innovators.
But are you saying we weren't thinking before, CT?
I am
before
saying
the colonials, before education, were we not thinking?
Limited.
But this is before this education system at all. As Kenyans who weren't educated, were we thinking?
We were thinking in a manner that suited us.
We did some complex, important things. We did. We had systems that were in place. We were able to organize ourselves in ways that are still being used as examples the world over today. Where did we lose it? We were able to think very well. We had systems in place.
It's all the West.
Actually, you must.
Yes.
You must.
I'm placing it, but I'm not joking. I'm saying blame it on the West.
You know,
but also blame it on us.
When you think about these constructs, as Njeri like saying, what I marvel at is just how far-seeing they are with their schemes. I mean, these people, you know, we look at it from what they do to us.
They
Look at
hustle.
what they do to their people. I mean, start there. Then you'd
No,
understand.
it's
Then you'd understand
if
how
you
far-seeing
thought
they are.
we were conditioned by the 844 system.
It's a brainwash.
They are socially
Lobotomy,
engineering
social
their people.
lobotomization.
Yes, they do.
They do a lot of social engineering. You have your kids playing PlayStation, but there's music in there that will prime them to want to join the army. So they're going around shooting people, but at 18, they suddenly want to join the army, not knowing why, because the subliminal messaging. It gets very deep and dark. So I don't underestimate what the West is capable of at all. But I want to go back and discuss this national identity and what values we should be looking to espouse and have in common, so we have that sense of belonging. And if we can actually have initiatives to create a national identity. I remember Najivunia kuwa Mkenya and so on. But, you know, sloganeering, yes, it's one way to go about it. But that's just, you know, sort of a tip of the iceberg.
Come towards the end of the process, right? So when you start talking about, you know, Najivunia kuwa Mkenya, it should be because you've already defined who this Mkenya
Exactly.
is.
We haven't even defined our identity.
Who is the Mkenya and what do you Jivunia for? We'd like to know. We'd love to conversation. The conversation actually continues in the next hour. It's about our national identity, our national values. 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. The phone lines are open. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. No, you weren't playing that. I was just saying this is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. And, you know, the conversation that we are going to have in the next hour when it comes to 8 o'clock is what is it that we use to define our values and our identity? And I think maybe we should just point out some areas and not go around, you know, saying, oh, you know, what we need to do is we go back to, let's list them down and say, number one, I say we go to 2, respect, and we have a sense of community. Let's go back into that. Respect and a sense of community. What do you think? 0719 012 600. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
All right. Looking at situations coming out of Langata Road, we definitely do have that issue coming off the 2 accidents that happened on Magadi Road this morning round about the Multimedia University. That is going to take a while to dissipate, so just be patient. Ngong Road, moving down towards the City Mortuary roundabout, we do have a bit of a snarl up, but apart from that, not so bad. Thika Road will be closed again tomorrow from all stops. You're asked to use alternative routes, so if you're in traffic, understand that is what the issue is. Tomorrow, try and stay off the area. All right, apart from that, nothing too painful. Apart from what we already see, you see something we should know about, give us a call or send us a message. The number is 0719 012 600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your
It's
day.
Kenya's biggest conversation on 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi. We are live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, www.spicefm.co.ke. Well, the conversation is happening on Twitter, Spice FM KE. What we're asking is, what are Kenya's, how should we define our national values and our national identity? What is Kenya's national values and national identity? 0719 012 600. Jerry, you were saying something.
I was talking about Rwanda. Well, I wanted to, during the break, we got talking about Rwanda and how they've managed to create quite a salient, tangible identity. And a lot of it based on dignity, integrity, and unity, which is, and you can feel it when you visit Rwanda. But of course, it's having undergone some tremendous atrocities, and they came out of it the way they have with very good leadership. And maybe they're a country we can look at when looking at how we can curate because I think we do need to be deliberate about creating our identity, about which national values we're going to try and espouse as a cohesive. Of course, we've got different ethnic groups and they might be conflicting cultures, which those two can be brought together for discussion. But it's definitely a conversation we should be having. I'm hoping we can get lots of ideas today.
Let's see the ideas that Hamid had. Hamid, how are you? You're calling from Mombasa. You're in traffic, right, Hamid?
Yeah, stuck in traffic as usual in Mombasa.
Abana Jali.
Well, I like what you guys are talking about, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I've been out of the country for quite some time, and I've experienced their national days, equivalent of Mashujaa Day, I guess, here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's completely different. People actually dress up. For example, in Oman, right?
Mm-hmm.
People actually dress up and in their national dresses, which is colors of the nation, which is, for example, like the flag colors and all that.
Right.
And it's practically every household. Unfortunately, we don't see that here in Kenya, which is really sad. Back in the 90s, I think you used to see it in every equivalent of the Mashujaa Day. I can't remember what it was called, though.
Kenyatta Day.
Yeah, yeah. And, I mean, you used to see the flags everywhere. On the highways, on all the businesses.
Yeah.
That hardly happens these days. I wonder why.
Interesting. So you felt more connected to Kenya back in the day than you did now. There's been a disintegration. It's been degenerating over time.
Exactly.
And you don't know why. That's an interesting perspective. That we were more Kenyan previously.
You know, it's a requirement to put up the flag on national days. It's a requirement that you are a business, you are a building, you put up a commercial building, you put up the Kenya flag.
Yeah, I believe it is, but
it still
I don't
exists.
see it happening these days.
Would it be reaching if I was to suggest?
Last year's Mashujaa Day, we hardly saw any flags. Maybe it happened in Nairobi, but in Mombasa there were very few.
Oh, right. It's quite something.
Would it be far-reaching if I was to suggest that maybe this is because of multi-party democracy, which has acted as a wedge between, of course, it's even harder with multiple ethnicity to build a national identity. And what happened when we went into multi-party democracy, as opposed to it being ideology-based, which we've discussed previously, it was tribal-based, which further reinforced our differences. Whereas when you're building a national identity, what you're looking to do is find commonalities that you can bring together as the cohesive. So I think politics has something to do with it, because we're a lot more politicized now. Because when he said that, yes, in the 90s he did feel more Kenyan, I do remember a sense of unity. We were all in tandem. It was homogenous. We were all watching the same thing. We were all talking about the same thing. We had events that the whole country was going to, the show, the safari rally. We're all in tandem. There was something that united us.
Exactly.
Whereas now with a lot of politics, and I keep saying in Western media, we're all watching different things. Nobody's on the same page. So we don't have any of these unifying factors, whether it's culture, traditions, they're falling away.
Hamid, what do you think?
Yeah, though I feel westernization is there everywhere, whether we like it or not.
Did you find that in the Middle East? In Oman? You felt the westernization?
It is, yeah. It's
they listen to rap music and so on?
They have their own rap music.
Right. Okay, so they've adopted it.
Yeah. Though, as I said, westernization is there. But we do not have something here that unites us as Kenyans. That for me, that's what I see as the main problem. They have their various cultures, various different tribes. In fact, the more you stay there, the more you realize they have even more tribes than we do.
Right.
Right.
But on their national day, it's one tribe. they're all one people.
They are all Omanis.
Yeah. And they are proud. They are proud to be Omanis.
Okay.
You see Omanis going to UAE, they dress up in their national
They
dress.
go as Omanis.
Yeah.
How was the Kenyan community in Oman when you were there? Was there?
It's really good.
There-
Yeah, we are united on
in the diaspora.
the Mashujaa Day. We all get together, have a party or something like that.
So, Hamid, let me ask you something that actually has been said many times. Yeah?
Yeah.
When you were in Oman,
Yeah.
was it possible for you to walk around maybe in a mall and identify somebody and tell, Uyunim Kenya?
Yeah, it would be mostly because you would hear them speaking Swahili in a different way. However, in Oman, there are very many East African people.
Okay.
Omanis themselves come from basically Kenya and Zanzibar.
Yeah.
So you would find them speaking Swahili.
Swahili
but
as well.
Their Swahili is more Zanzibari Swahili. So you know a Kenyan when he speaks.
Okay.
I mean,
But not just by looking at him, you couldn't tell he was Kenyan.
it would be difficult.
All right, okay.
It would be difficult, to be honest,
Asante.
unless he speaks.
Thank you very much, Hamid, and we wish you all the best in traffic. So, on what road are you? Just so we can inform the other people who are in traffic as well.
I've actually just come out. The bridge. In Mombasa, it's just the bridge.
All right. So that was Nyali Bridge that was
Nyali
backed up.
Bridge, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's moving, it's flowing.
Yeah.
Asante.
The traffic marshals are doing their work.
All right. Asante san and have a good day.
You too. Thanks.
National days are a way of us
Absolutely.
feeling as one,
Mhm.
and we have them. We have quite a number. We've got Mashujaa Day, like we said. We've got Jamhuri Day. We've got Madaraka Day. What other national day do we have, Siti?
World AIDS Day.
Oh gosh, City. Debbie Downer.
From 0719 012 that's 0719 012 What are our values? What are our national values? What's our national identity as Kenyans?
Or spirit, raison d'etre, or an ethos. For instance, America for the longest was the rags to riches story, and the fact that we're multinational, multi-ethnic.
The land of opportunity.
Absolutely.
The land of the free.
And they managed to sell that, and it brought people together. And then, of course, as time evolved, they created this external enemy and internal enemy now, terrorism, which made people even more American. So these are the sort of things that we're looking for. I don't know how to capture it. It's called raison d'etre in political science, where there's a spirit about the country that brings us together. Under Moi days, there was a time we were all fighting soil erosion. Do you remember that?
The
And we're all
Mmomonyoko wa
udongo. Yeah, we were all fighting that, and we all came together under one umbrella. So it doesn't have to be something negative, a catastrophe, but an enemy does help. What can we find to be the Kenyan spirit, and it brings us all together? The closest I've come to identifying with a Kenyan brand, so to speak, was Safaricom, believe it or not. I think Safaricom have done quite well. If you imagine Safaricom branding, marketing and advertising, but done as if they were selling Kenya to the Kenyans. Do you see what I mean? They've done a lot better than Brand Kenya, for
And
instance.
they've actually done a lot of Kenya.
And the
selling Kenya.
advertising and all that, it's all Kenyan. They're not trying to be westernized at all. Well, the caller spoke about westernization. You find what is considered cool and classy is your adherence to Western values and
Yep,
Western clothing and Western what you're doing. When are we going to embrace what we do? And I saw Safaricom do that with some of their slogans, Jibambe. It became cool. It was okay. It was corporate. It didn't have to be Americanized. It didn't have to be Westernized for it to be proper. And that's where we need to get to, where we can also throw some of our culture out there and be proud of it. And you see that in a lot of music and entertainment and art. It's a good trajectory to go down. And this is what I was trying to bring out with Ezekiel the other day with Wamlambes. It really brought people together. On the internet, there was a unifying factor.
It does bring people
Memes
together.
like that. I remember Makamende as well, little things that we own that are ours. So maybe take things like that, amplify them, and then create something more around it that we can build up.
If I look at
Tuna West Make by Peter Kenneth.
You know what we lament, I think, is the culture of individualism
Mhm.
that characterizes a lot of what we do. And we lament it because, well, Eric actually put in that perspective, is a sense of community that people sort of like long for in a time gone by. and we say it's not quite there. Now, in the absence of that sense of community, even if there are values that people aspire to or people want to embrace, it's difficult for it to become national. Observe, when our athletes do well, we are Kenyan. We had Safari Rally.
Very, very, very much Kenyan.
Yes, Safari Rally. We were Kenyan. We talk about safaris and tourism. It's actually synonymous with Kenyan. Yes, it is. Okay. Now, you talk about tea. It's Kenyan.
Sri Lankan. I don't think we own that completely.
By and large, Indians grow tea, the Chinese grow tea, the Chinese grow even more tea.
Are we world renowned for our tea? Our tea is world renowned, but are we well known?
Yes.
In Nigeria, we're known for our tea?
Yes, okay. 100%. I would say that for sure.
Jerry, we give each other tea.
It's actually interesting to note that it's actually quite high up there in the renown
Not
tea.
only that, if the one thing that embraces all Kenyans, it's tea. When you go and visit someone, they offer you tea.
You have that in a lot of cultures. The English are very big about a cup of tea and tea time and so on.
We're talking about
I don't think that's something that's unique
Kenya.
to us.
Not unique.
No.
But
you think tea could be a unifying factor?
It does
Is that
unify.
what you're saying?
The drinking of tea is something that unifies Kenyans.
The youth don't even drink tea.
No, they do.
I don't think so. My kids don't drink tea.
Well, those
Teenagers.
are your kids.
Well, it's interesting to look at what actually does unify us. And if I look at, I'll just give an example as what I know best. In Nigeria, for example, during the time of the slave trade, after, one thing that did unify people was the invention of the language, which is now very popular as Pidgin English. And what they did is to find a way to communicate amongst themselves that the slave traders would not understand. They took this language and they broke it down, and then they began to speak and communicate amongst themselves. After the years of the slave trade, the language then became something that was spoken across the country and actually even spilled over into the countries of West Africa. Now,
talk some Pidgin first.
Well, I'll give you an example. And this then became ways in which, and we had blocks, like 10 years, where now that language was used to create unifying elements for the country. In the 80s, when corruption actually began to rear its ugly head, we then had phrases like Nigeria go survive. Regardless of what happened, Nigeria was going to survive. And now that this became a unifying factor where people spoke, it was in songs, it was all over billboards. We must survive. We go survive. We moved on to the next decade when now people saw a national pride and say, Niger no go carry last. Or rather, Niger not they carry last. In whatever we do, unfortunately, we had issues of corruption, but in whatever we do, that kind of, desire to succeed. Niger no go carry last. It's on t-shirts. It's all over the place.
What does it mean?
We will not come last. We will not be in the last
people
position.
An
inspiration
of
of something to be. Look, you have some of the biggest industries in Nigeria. Levi's, Porsche, all over the place. McDonald's, all over the place. However, come into the country, but we will give it our own. We'll have Ankara on jeans.
Interesting.
We'll have Ankara on the handbags that you bring in. We'll have Ankara threaded in, pun intended. In the clothes that you bring us to wear. We'll give you our own version.
You're proud of who you are.
Regardless of the situation that you see in the country from a political and economic skew, you're proud of what it is. Wazobia, the big conglomerates come into the country and they say we want to advertise. We'll say fantastic, but we're going to talk it. We're going to do it in Pidgin because now that one we don't understand. All this your big man English, we don't understand them. Put it in the language that we'll understand because it will resonate with the people. That's what we know. That's how we are going to go about it.
Perhaps it was a form of colonization that you underwent because Nigerians did retain a lot of their culture, their spirituality.
It's interesting that the colonization that took place in Nigeria was not complete.
Right.
It was not 100% colonization. And if you look at the East African countries,
unlike
whereas
Kenya.
yes, in Kenya it actually was
100%. And also I think with Nigeria, the intention of the British was to extract resources there. Here, it was for them to create somewhere they can live like Australia or America. So assimilation and things like that were also implemented when it came to our
colonization. And one way that they
colonization.
were able, and they used the element of divide and rule in order to extract these resources because they then went to the north where the kingdoms were prevalent. And they said, the only way that we're going to be able to get the resources out of the south is that we're going to get the northerners to come on our side and then use it as a way to convince the southerners to let us get their resources. It sounds very simplistic, but this is actually what happened.
Is there a sense of values and ethics? Because that's identity. That's and in some of it, I can hear and I get a sense of we are going through a tough time, so let's rally together to
And
overcome
we'll make it
this.
work on our own.
It's like we're constantly in some suffering mode, and we're just saying we will overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. But is there a sense of like values that thread across that say, for example, as a Nigerian, we don't expect you to do ABCD. As a Nigerian, we don't expect you to speak softly.
Let me give
we
you
expect you to speak to be
No,
loud.
not
To
even
them,
like
it's
that,
normal.
that-
It's
that-
soft, by the way.
There
I'm
you
not,
go.
right
That's a
now, I'm
value.
not even
See,
shouting.
that's a value.
It's not a value. Even now, I'm
That's
not
a
shouting.
Nigerian value.
It's not a value. but
Shouting
let
is
me
an
give you
American value.
Let me give you a
Aggression.
typical example. You're getting into a vehicle in the morning when people are being picked, and you say good morning, and people are wondering what is wrong.
What's
with you.
wrong with you?
It's not the way it's supposed to be. My auntie will walk into the studio now. Woe unto me if I do not greet her in a very respectful manner. If I'm walking outside my house in Nigeria and it doesn't matter who I will greet you. It is respectful.
It
and
doesn't matter
something
whether
that
you
we
know me
do
or not.
I will respect you because it is a human, it is respectful, it's the right thing to do.
Respect. African
Respect
continent.
is a big deal in Nigeria.
We have lost respect.
Interesting.
We have lost it. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. You can also post your comment on our Facebook page where we are live streaming this morning, Spice FM KE. Also, you can comment on YouTube, Spice FM KE, and on Twitter, Spice FM KE. Well, the conversation we are having is, what are Kenya's values? What is Kenya's national identity?
It's interesting because she speaks of pidgin. Of course, we've got our own version of that in Sheng, but
Yep.
that's been almost given a criminal a sort of underbelly.
It's actually
or a
risen.
dark.
If you look, like the way you're saying, if you look at the marketing campaigns that have been done by the big companies, EABL, you talk about Safaricom, you talk about the taglines
time,
have gone into Sheng.
Into Sheng. So maybe that's one aspect that could bring us together. But it's not looked at as classy because we're all aspiring. The British,
To twang.
the westernization is still very much there.
Yep.
Let me
So
give you another example.
If you went to an interview and spoke Sheng, that's
They'll
the end
be
of
looking
you,
at
isn't
you're
it?
crazy.
Yeah.
The man who made me choose Kenya by choice, have Kenya as by choice, said to me the other day, listening to some Nigerians, said, they know all the songs. As in, he was actually quite amazed that a song plays on the radio, and because we're watching a particular program, and the Nigerians will sing along. And they know the songs. They know who sang it. They know all the words. I said yes. Because you identify, just in line with what Eric is saying, you identify with that thing that brings you together. So you're going to promote that individual who fires or who ignites this thing that's bringing us together in our suffering. So that when we look at the political scene, for example, and things are not going our way, when economically we're not able to uphold the country in the manner in which we should, we band together as people. And the way we've been able to do this is through culture, is through dress, through values, through music. And music,
Food,
definitely
yeah.
food. And music is definitely one of the things that has been able to show as a way in which, okay, this is something that is typically who you are. This is something that you'll be able to use to express who you are as an individual, as a group of people, as a population, as a nation. And I said, well, yeah, definitely. It's one thing that you can use to band together, as a country. And those are things that we should look at.
CT Muga is lapping up everything you're saying. He looks like he's completely bought into this.
It's an interesting discussion because, it brings us to the question of what is it that makes up a national identity? Is it the aspiration of a people? Is it strong leadership that guides people in a certain direction? If you think of some of the worst things that human beings have committed against each other, it has been a leadership issue. Whether it's a failure of leadership, but leadership. If you look at some of the wonderful things that nations have done, again, it boils down to leadership. Jerry was talking about Rwanda. After the Second World War, the people who took over the running of the German government made very deliberate steps to ensure that people would remember what brought about the problems that they had. They made sure. Right now, you talk about 1945. We're now in 2019. There's a generation that might as well have been a fairy tale. They don't actually relate to it. So something like neo-Nazism is on the rise again.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
And it's becoming an issue. Okay? Now, when you say national identity, one of the things that people who have experienced trauma as a result of people making decisions that harm their fellow citizens, again, the issue of identity comes in. Because in Germany, it was who was German. and the identity. Who are these people who are not considered German, and yet they were Germans?
Because they based it on how they looked. They
Yes.
looked for the blonde hair,
Yes.
blue-eyed,
Yes,
individual.
Aryan
yes,
race.
the Aryan
But
race.
they were guided to think along those lines. If you're talking about the genocide in Rwanda, some people decided that they were going to profile others and consider them. Again, it was a question of identity. So, whereas identity is important, and why I was absorbing all this is a national identity prevents this sort of thing. But when you have it segmented and fragmented, then you have a problem. The 42 versus 1, the 43 versus 1, the 44 versus 2, that argument is also an identification process. But we've segmented it, and it can have very devastating consequences. Now, if you have a unifying national identity that people subscribe to, then that is prevented. Because when you think along those lines, it brings you back. For instance, you see the norms that we were speaking of, that Njeri correctly put and said these were values that were garnered in the village. They were, because that's where we all came from before urbanization.
Absolutely.
So that is where these value systems
And now
were
we're in
generated.
an urban village. We actually talk about a global village.
Yes.
I've got Sharon calling in from Nairobi. Good morning, Sharon.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Very well.
Fine, thank you.
Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you. So, quick disclaimer.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love this program because it offers such good civic and political education for some of us who are not too familiar with politics. So, congrats for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah, no, it's great. So, anyway, back to the conversation on national values. I just wanted to throw a caveat in the works as a millennial young person myself. I really feel like Twitter sort of unifies us as Kenyans, or rather, just the sort of the use of that space to, rally behind a certain hashtag, rally behind citizen journalism, or rally behind just pushing things forward.
Or when being attacked by Nigerians.
Or CNN, or whoever.
Yes.
And I don't know. As I was listening to this conversation, I just thought, it could be an interesting thing to highlight, because for me, I was in university in London, and a lot of my friends would be like, "What is this KOT thing that we keep hearing about?" And it sort of gave me a sense of patriotism somehow. And I realized, actually, maybe as Kenyans, we do identify with this opportunity to make our voices heard on the digital realm, and we sort of use that maybe as, I don't know, millennials or Generation Z to identify ourselves. If you look at a lot of young people's Twitter handles or their bio, there's a Kenyan flag, or there's a, I don't know, Sharon Mashira KE or 254. We sort of identify ourselves by virtue of our country, and I feel that it's something that can be highlighted as a thing that
As
we
a
use
unifier.
to unify ourselves.
Mhm.
Which is for me super interesting, because I never really thought that use of the internet, and maybe that's what
Could
makes
bring people
Kenya
together.
exactly. So maybe how we embrace the digital space and use it to perpetuate certain ideas or creativity or tech or whatever it is. Like, we've really embraced the digital space and have used it to unify us, and I just think it's
Interesting that you bring it up.
Yeah.
How do you
Great
think we can
idea.
harness this, actually? How can we harness this, Sharon? How do you think we should be able to harness, especially for that demographic that is very active and has access to Twitter and understands what social media is all about? How can we harness this and make it a unifying factor that gives us some sort of identity? Like KOT, every one of us should be, Sharon Mashira KOT, Eric Latif KOT.
Yeah, I think when brands like Magical Kenya, or brands that have been endowed with the responsibility of branding Kenya, if they use social media to run campaigns that create that, like I like what Jerry said about Safaricom, so I'm a content creator myself, and I really love that Safaricom does not look into the West to get creative concepts or to push a certain idea of what should be a Kenyan identity or a Kenyan brand. And I think if we have campaigns like Tembea Kenya, which is very authentic to us, and have a hashtag behind it, because basically with the digital space, a hashtag is like it's like a spot that you find community. You know, you search
channel.
I don't know, natural hair. Yeah, exactly. You search natural hair as a hashtag, and then you find a whole community of people who, you know, are about that life. And it's the same thing with Tembea Kenya or whatever other campaign. So if we just simply find a hashtag to rally behind, then it's an easy way to harness that space and use it to, you know, push for a certain agenda. So, you know, it's honestly as simple as that. I feel like we sometimes try to think of such complex ways to target the youth, blah, 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 young people. How do we understand this crazy millennials?
Keep it simple.
But really, you keep it simple. Like, we also don't like complicated things. Like,
But we don't live... Is it Sharon, your name?
Mm-hmm. Sharon, yeah.
Sharon, we don't live in a simple world. It's very complex and dynamic. So you say a hashtag could unite us, absolutely, but that's a very small demographic. It doesn't penetrate the internet and Twitter and so on. It doesn't penetrate to the masses, for instance. A lot of people are on Facebook, yes, but for different reasons. So can I ask you as a creative, how can we take hashtag offline? So we've decided that hashtag is what is going to unite us. We've seen it happen on Twitter. So if we can completely deconstruct it and take it offline, what is that hashtag? What is the spirit between the hashtag that unites people on Twitter?
Right. And that's a really good question. And I'd like to challenge that and say that I don't think that a hashtag is online. I think a hashtag is a concept that came from offline or brick and mortar world that was brought online, because a hashtag is simply a digital way of
expressing
signposting a community or signposting, really, because through that particular hashtag or code or whatever it's based upon, you're able to find people that you connect with, and that's the beautiful thing about Facebook. If you look into Mark Zuckerberg's story, he was trying to pitch and sell, you know, this Facebook whatever concept as a amazing innovation website. You can connect with people, until the day he realized, one person bought into his concept because he had a massive database of people who were simply just trying to connect with each other without physically having to move from one place to the next. And I think the sense of community that a hashtag creates is as simple as that. You know, you said we live in a simple world, which I fully agree. No, you said we live in a complicated world?
Complex and dynamic.
Yes, we live in a complex and dynamic world, which is true. But I think the simple values of being human are extremely simple. And sometimes we get so caught up in trying to understand or complicate things that we forget we actually live in a very simple world.
We're humans,
you know, like we're human. I can call in. I've never met any of you. You've not met me. But here we are having a conversation that will potentially inspire other people to, you know, think along the same lines. And I think sometimes, honestly, life or the human world is just as simple as that, making connections and trying to plug in. So I don't know. I don't think I fully agree that we live in a super complex world.
No, when it comes to marketing and speaking to the communities and so on, it's not as simple. That's what I meant. In terms of humanity and back to basics, of course, it is simple and
keep the communication simple
as
well.
I think in terms of marketing, it is. In fact, especially that
it needs to be simplified
It needs to become exactly, and especially because with the digital age, we have access to so much information, and so the true value or authenticity is as simple as keeping it simple, because you're exposed to so much information, so much access, so much.
Keep it simple,
short and simple.
Oh, okay, mine was
simple, you know.
You're gonna add an extra S as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Great
Sharon.
stuff, Sharon. Really, really great insights there, and lovely to chat to you. Thanks for that.
Cheers.
Well, this is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We are discussing Kenya's values and national identity. National values, national identity. What do you think we should use to define our values? What do you think we should use to define our identity? That's what we are asking this morning. We are live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, and www.spicefm.co.ke. The conversation is also happening on Twitter. It's Spice FM KE 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. The phone lines are open. 28 minutes to 9 o'clock.
Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
98.7 Spice FM, Mombasa. Traffic.
An interesting perspective this morning with all the traffic that we see on the road coming out of Magadi Road. Guys, besides other causes of road accidents, don't you think mental health problems among drivers could also be a contributor to road carnage? That's a question that's being thrown out there this morning. Again, it is Friday, September 13th, and we've had some bad situations on the road today. Mombasa Road is moving along quite slowly, but it's moving. Around about 8:30, as things change, they just remain the same. And this is a situation we see on Thika Road. Same around Westlands. And yes, Wayaki Way is still a bit of a mess, heading from Wayaki Way going all the way to Nyayo Stadium and back. 3 roundabouts that you must get through. Everybody's going into and out of the city centre. Thika Road, definitely a mess. Call us, send us a message, 0712-019-600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Eric Latif, C.T. Muga, Jerry Thorne, and Ndu Okwan. We've got on the line Jennifer. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're very well, thank you.
All right. I wanted to throw in my 2 cents on the very interesting and passionate conversation you're having about our values.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we had, I think, a couple of years back, we discussed the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya.
Mm.
And I think right now with what we are facing with the cancers, we're not sure of what we're ingesting, we're not sure of anything, I think it would be a really good campaign to actually put out. And the ownership would cut across policy makers, because there'd have to be policies around what comes into the country. Standard cabs would have to up their game.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously socially everybody would be rallying around it, because we have cancer and we are facing cancer in our families, in our extended families, with our friends. So it's something that would possibly give us some sense of belonging.
Because we all resonate with it at some point. Yeah.
Correct.
So something to rally around. Do you think it should really be at the center of how we identify ourselves as Kenyan, though?
I think
our national identity, which should transcend tragedy, disease, and so on, I think.
I agree with you. However, think about this. We need to have a narrative
Mm-hmm.
that people can agree with, because that's the heart of marketing. The narrative that I can speak to, a narrative that are around an emotional connection.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole thing about kujivunia kuwa Mkenya, we tried it, I think some 5 years back, where there was a national dress, but it went nowhere.
Mm.
So right now we have something that we could actually look at and say, how do we change this? How do we look at, is it the pesticides that's in our food? Is it the pharmacists? Is it this, the other? What can we actually do to just say we are safeguarding ourselves?
Mm.
And from that action can come a sense of belonging,
togetherness.
Togetherness, exactly. And perhaps from there we can then further the discussion around, so what shall we be known for? But
upholding standards, Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But for my end, because the whole discussion around what is our narrative, I think is wrong, because we have so many things that are going wrong right now. So we can't even think clearly to decide, oh yeah, we should be known for this. So we have so many things that are not working.
Okay.
How about we first rally around fighting those things?
How about we find something that is working, something that's going good for us, and actually amplify that and get people to rally around that. That way it's not transitional in that it's got a longer shelf life. If it's something like cancer, so what happens when we beat it? We have to re-identify ourselves as Kenyans?
But remember what I said. I started off with Buy Kenya, Build Kenya. So the thing about it is the action plan.
Yeah.
The strategic initiatives around delivering that is what will be around So the issue of, okay, how do we handle what comes into to our country, and how do we? So those are the action points that will actually be what underpinning the whole aspect of Buy Kenya, Build Kenya. Because if you think about it, the youth, the millennials, have started really owning Kenya, the Kenyan brand in the T-shirts. Remember there was a movie called Straight Out of Compton.
Mm-hmm.
And if you notice, if you have teenagers or nephews and whatever, everybody was wearing a T-shirt saying straight out of wherever they come from.
Right.
You know, so it's just like the previous caller called and said, it's really what you do and how you unpack whatever it is you use, whether it's the hashtag. If you actually have very solid initiatives around it, then it will sell. Mm-hmm. It's not really feel-good things. It's actually, so there's a marketing aspect, there's a PR that gives you the warm feeling, but then there's actual hard work that is happening across the country, policies, ministries, whatever that needs to work, that will then bring the feeling. Because you're talking about America, the defense system, the way they reason around a lot of things is what we admire in the movies we watch on espionage and how they fight for their countries. Mm-hmm. And we are like, wow, the CIA, and we think they are so brilliant. Mm-hmm. It's everything. So it's both the PRs, but there's actually work being done.
Some action.
Social marketing. Yes. That's what it is. What I'm hearing is this, that yes, we all may aspire towards the same thing, but the manifestation of it will be different. I keep hearing the term millennials. There's a way in which we'll agree on the principle that yes, there must be a Kenyan identity, but the millennials may express that identity differently.
Yeah.
Those who are
totally.
Yes, those who are non-millennials may express it differently. People
and give them the freedom to do that.
Yes.
Give them the freedom, because
no. We will not give you the freedom. It's a space you must take. Excuse me. It's a space you must take. It's a space you must take. It exists. Simply take it.
This is the thing.
Yeah.
No, this is the thing. I'll tell you what. For example, when you're looking at corporate values, you would look at whatever it could be. It could be agility. How do you then communicate agility across, say, departments? So there'd be a marketing department that would communicate agility very differently from the finance department. Mm-hmm. Very simple analogy. That's what I'm saying. We would say hashtag or whatever, but if you communicate it to people in their 60s in a way they understand, they would buy into it. But millennials, you communicate to them in a digital sense, they would get
in their language, in their space.
Yes, in their language.
Using their medium.
True, this is real life. Or there's a guy who works in the SME. The guy who's working in industry earning 200 per day. You will not communicate to them the same way as somebody in a corporate office. They won't get it. And remember, it touches a lot of emotion.
That is not entirely true, my sister. I think the principle that you're trying to say is that you need to take into consideration the diversities. Am I right?
Correct.
Thank you. Yes.
Jennifer, thank you very much for calling this morning.
Jennifer's thought process is kind of funneled through the corporate world. So you could hear her talking about SMEs. And so she's talking more about implementation and administrative, and then it's from a marketing and PR angle, which is what we'll do once we identify what the factors are.
The starting point is identifying.
It's identifying what value systems do we want to espouse that are common already. We're not trying to create a value system per se.
We identify them.
Jerry,
James is in traffic. Heading towards Kangundo. James, good morning. James.
Thank you so much for having me, Eric.
Yes, you are now in the Situation Room with the City Muga and Jerry Thorne, Nduoko and me.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
Karibu.
Okay, asante. Now, I see the debate is very interesting. One thing I would like to say thank you to you all, because I think this is the kind of conversation we've been longing for. That is that we are in that debate room that is not owned by politicians. It's owned by people who are thinking outside the box. And I feel so much comfortable and accommodated listening to you and having that urge to express my feelings. Now I think based on the lines of social and like our culture, there are small things we tend to forget. And these small things that they amplify to whom we are as Kenyans. You see, being born in a country of 43 tribes, I find it unique. Like people speaking different languages, 43 different languages, at the same line of boundaries. Living together in harmony, we communicate. We have our own way of communicating, respecting each other. But I only think the problem is that there is somewhere we are missing the concept. I'm born a Kikuyu, somebody is a Luo. But in a way, we try to criminalize, and I feel like being born a Kikuyu sometimes, the way people speak about it, is like, I'm not supposed to be born a Kikuyu. And I had no powers over it. I had no powers. I had no powers over it.
Yeah.
I found myself being a Kikuyu, called Jenga or something. If we try and accommodate everyone, to let everyone respect each and everyone culture, be at school curriculum, like this is the Luo culture, this is what they do, this is the Maasai. We grow enjoying that and feeling part of it, like you're not living in fear.
Okay.
Again, I see like our children, like we are the young masses. We think because our kids can speak English and forget our mother tongue.
And they can't speak the mother tongue.
We are more civilized. You think if you cannot eat githeri, you have pizza, you feel like you're living in a different type of world.
You're living the life.
Yes, we are maturing before time. We pretend so much we are so much in social media, whereas there is not even a single Kenyan who can make his own phone. You see, these small things we embrace before time.
All right.
And I think it's very dangerous. I think it's very dangerous. Like, for instance, me, I'm a hustler. I do all kind of work. I cannot tell you exactly what I do, but surprisingly, I earn a living by the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to say I don't steal.
You'll do anything.
I do everything. I drive. I do construction. I do.
I'm looking for Chaco gems. Can you supply on the way back?
Of course, I'm headed to Machakos. I can bring you a truck of Chaco.
You see?
Now you see, like I look at my daughter who is 80 years old now, and I try to imagine if I die today, maybe my wife cannot handle life the way I do handle it, and they end up going back to the rural village. There you find my grandmother, who is speaking purely in Kikuyu, and my daughter cannot even speak a single word in Kikuyu. She has to join school there, which kids speak in Kikuyu. My daughter will be completely lost for quite a number of years or so. She'll go backward.
So I hear you saying that some of the things that we should actually look towards as a national identity would be inclusivity, maybe language. Those are some of the things that we should then hold on to that would then be able to identify a national, carve out a national identity for Kenya.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
All right.
Because once we acknowledge and appreciate each other's culture, we'll be able to live together in harmony all day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nelson. We wish you all the best in Machakos today.
Thank you so much.
And may your hustle bear fruit.
All right. Thank you so much, Latif, and your group.
All right. Nelson, you're back online.
Yes. I think this discussion started on how do we instill citizenship on our children, and it veered to how do we identify our own value system as a country. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
No, you're not wrong.
No, as in yes, you're right.
Okay. So now the thing is, as a country, every community traditionally, I think we need to look back for us to move forward in coming up with a value system for the country. Every community, for example, I'm a Kikuyu, we had a 7-point value system. One of them was courage and generosity and justice and fairness. Those are the three that I can remember off the top of my head. But
is this a Kikuyu thing?
That was a Kikuyu thing, a traditional Kikuyu thing about the Kikuyu value system, right? Now, I believe every single community in this country has a value system. If we were to go back to the elders and find out what those value systems are, we'd find them out.
Yes.
Right? And then we can pick the best from
Nelson,
each and every community. Yes?
You know what? You are now the elder. All right? So don't talk about going back to the elders. So now you tell us, what are these values that you'd like us to pick from our culture?
For example, one of the values I'd like to see us instill in ourselves is fairness. If I do what is fair then I'll not go overlapping, I'll not go littering, I'll not go doing things that are hurting others. Yeah, but I'll do things that are right to everyone, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, and I believe what the government is trying to do by instilling citizenship within at the primary school level at grade 1, 2, and 3 is they're trying to change the society as a whole because the system is broken. The society is broken.
So we're mending
Yeah,
it.
we would be exactly, and we would be very ignorant. It would be very ignorant of us to say that we are living in a perfect in a society that is functioning. Our society is not functioning; it's broken, right? And therefore, we need to go back
CT
to
Muga doesn't agree.
It is functioning. It may be limping a little bit in certain areas, but it isn't entirely broken down, is it really?
It is broken down. It is broken
Completely
down.
broken down?
I completely believe it's broken down.
Explain to me how it qualifies as being completely broken down.
Look at it this city. Look at it this way, city. If you drive down Mombasa Road, this is an example I'll give you. The gentleman who called before said he's a sand trader. If you drive down Syokimau from the railway station, driving down all the way to Mulolongo, you'll see trucks of sand packed on the roadside.
Yes.
Right? Do you know where that sand comes from?
I have no idea.
What happens is this: when you order sand from a sand vendor,
yes,
they come and stop by Syokimau, and half of it is chopped off, and then they do what they call kuchanua, so that they flush it with air, and you get half the truck that you ordered for.
Right.
So when the truck comes to your site, it looks like it's full, but it's actually filled with air. Right? And that has become normal. It's been done in broad daylight. They're stealing in broad daylight. Yeah, and that's the society. In fact, the other day,
We have not.
one
we
vendor
don't have
was
any
telling me,
togetherness.
exactly, we are not doing things that are fair to each other, and we know we are hurting each other. The other day, I was talking to one sand vendor, and he was telling me if he gets an order from a Muhindi,
a Kenyan of Indian origin.
Asian.
Well, if he gets an order from someone of Asian origin.
Thank
let's
you.
not even
No,
mention
he's
that.
allowed to
They
say
could be from
Muhindi, come
anywhere.
on.
No, he's not.
He
Yeah?
is. Go
It's
ahead.
a tribe.
Okay, I apologize.
the
for
tribe-
No, you can say
You
Muhindi.
can
Come
say
on.
it.
There's no rules.
The tribe
like
is
that
not
here.
called Kenyan of Asian origin.
Yeah?
They're called
The
Indian.
thing is, if they receive an order from someone of Asian origin, in fact, let's not even say Muhindi, let even it be Chinese. So long as they're not black, they will take a full truck. If they receive an order from an African Kenyan, they will deliver a fluffed up truck. And they said it's because the Muhindi is going to negotiate is not going to negotiate on the price, but the Kenyan will negotiate on the price. Right? That's what we are doing to each other.
Okay.
So the
Nelson.
system is broken. The
So
system is broken.
you're saying one of the things that you want us to pick back from the cultural days, those old days, is that one. I was calling it respect, and you're saying you're calling it fairness.
There is respect, there is fairness, there is justice for all.
Right.
Yeah. So if I do again what is just by you, it's also just for me.
Okay.
I won't go overlapping and blocking you in traffic because I'll waste your time and I'll waste mine in the process.
Okay.
But today what we have is everybody is trying to get ahead of everyone else.
You actually do have a very valid point. You know, it's a manifestation of a community that is self-loathing.
Exactly.
Yes.
Therefore broken.
We will respect other people, but we'll disrespect each other.
Exactly.
Yes.
All right, those are my 2 points. Yes.
Nelson, thank you very much for your 2 points. They were actually very strong points. We can actually say they were 10, but let's go by your word.
You're welcome.
Asante
All
sana.
right, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Sharon is back online.
Hello, Sharon.
Yes.
Hey, I'm back, guys.
Yes.
You're clearly enjoying the show today.
I really am. I am. But yeah, I just wanted to point out something else. That I feel that there's a strong generational difference that maybe is not being considered. Because honestly, for me, so I'm 25, and I feel that for me, when I think about myself in terms of national values, I fully identify myself as Kenyan before identifying myself as Kikuyu because
Right.
I can barely speak the language. And I think with a lot of young or millennials and the generation after, because for some reason we've not been brought into a world where we have to fully speak our traditional language. Like I think someone raised that, was it Titi or whoever? But we when we seek our identity or our culture, we fully seek being Kenyan or speaking Swahili.
Okay.
And I feel that this question that you're asking, what are our national values? I don't think we're gonna have that question, once sort of millennials are now the older generation, because we're not necessarily gonna have that conflict.
But Sharon,
I don't know if
as
that makes sense.
millennials, what would you say the millennials' values are? Not identity, values.
Yeah, okay, that's a very good question, because I think millennial values, or how we identify with our nationality as proud Kenyans, is things that are fully authentic to our experience. So, and these are things that are communicated through music, through fashion, through the arts. Where you can't necessarily trace where it came from or what influence, but it's just fully authentic to that Kenyan experience versus something totally different.
Sharon, can I spin that for you and ask you, if you then had
Yeah.
a choice to learn your language, Kikuyu as it were, would you take that up?
Absolutely not.
You would not want to even learn your language?
I wouldn't, because I don't see how it's relevant to my day-to-day, life.
So it's not something that you identify with then?
I do, by virtue of, it's been drilled
It's where
in my
you're
head.
from. Oh,
but
'cause
it's where I'm from. So
She
this
doesn't
is
see the intrinsic benefits. She's saying it.
But I just don't see the there's no value.
To what
add.
end?
And I think you're reflective of quite a few people. I think you speak on behalf of quite a large chunk of millennials. You'll see, their mother tongue is not being spoken because of urbanization, schools, and so on. And language is the most common unifying factor when it comes to creating a national identity. So maybe it will evolve organically in Kenya, and we will come to a national
Perhaps.
identity when, as you say, you guys, the millennials,
Millennials.
are in control of things, whatever that means. So maybe it's time to urge you guys to come into leadership, to come into the public space and
Yes.
own some of it as
So
well.
language-
But Jerry,
language
do
will no
remember,
longer be the identifying
but Jerry,
factor.
do remember, millennials have parents. It's these parents who take these children to these schools. It is these parents who ensure that these young people either learn the language or don't.
not.
I think that
Yes, true.
very many people understand the problem of tribalism and do not actually like it. But they're conflicted between doing something about it and identifying with your own, or feeling that you betray your own if you don't identify with them. So what they
Absolutely, and
Yes.
I think that for maybe when my generation is sort of in leadership positions, slightly older, I truly feel that we're not going to be divided on sort of tribal lines.
You will be, but it'll be no, you will be, but it'll be muted, because I'm saying it began with your parents. When parents don't take the bother and time to teach their children that language, is because they feel that language is what brings about the tribalism that they want to fight against.
It's no longer important.
They're actually doing something about it, but they don't come up and shout it, because they have an entire generation who seem to be leading in a certain direction. But this evolution process you speak of is an excellent one. It's an excellent one because it shows the dynamism of evolution. And we thank you, millennials, for bringing this. Keep up the good fight.
CT, I disagree with you. When parents don't teach their children Kikuyu, for instance, it's out of usually laziness, or also just because they're speaking English. It's not a deliberate thing to fight tribalism. I'll let you know that. There's very extreme Kikuyu, even supremacists, who will not teach their kids English, who will not teach their kids Kikuyu. So it's not, they don't have the mindset, the parents do not have the mindset to stop tribalism, as you suggest, and they're not teaching their children that language as a tool. It's not deliberate to stop tribalism. I'll tell you that.
Jerry is
there are those that do.
Jerry is preferring her view on the subject, and she's saying it contradicts mine. You see, there is what people do overtly, and there is what they do covertly.
I know a lot of people who don't teach their kids, let's say Kikuyu or Luo, yet they're very tribalist. So you have a Luya family, their kids don't speak. They go to
they speak tribal things.
We've got Sharon. Let's ask Sharon. Sharon, so you did not learn Kikuyu as you were growing up? Sharon?
Still there? She's gone. Okay.
I'm still here.
Oh, you're still
excellent.
there. Oh.
So I was saying you did not learn Kikuyu as you were growing up, right, Sharon?
Yeah.
What did you say was the reason behind that? Why didn't your parents encourage you to learn Kikuyu?
So it was more so. It was not like an effort to teach. It was more so I picked it up as they were speaking, and then it just because they had sort of jobs in the city, they spoke English, Kiswahili. I think just moving away, the rural urban migration, moving away from sort of Nyeri, for instance, in Nairobi, where moving from shags, yeah. So it's almost an emblem of now where we've moved on. We've learned, we've urbanized, we've learned new language, we're cool, or whatever. So Kikuyu then gets for me, Kikuyu was what they revert to when they're really pissed off. It's the language of
language of anger.
Discipline.
Or when they're having their private conversations that they don't want you to participate in.
Exactly. So it's not something that's socially inviting and romantic or whatever. It's just you've pissed me off, so
let's switch.
I'm gonna talk to you. I'm gonna go into my roots and tell you this in Kikuyu. So it's not something you also necessarily want to learn.
You've given us invaluable contributions this morning, Sharon. I'd like to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day. But also,
right,
in the next conversation, you can still call back.
Perhaps.
Thank you. Right, yeah. So we've been discussing our values and we're discussing our national identity. And as we come to conclude that, we'll also now look at what we are doing. CT talked about there are things that we do that have become part of us. And one of those things that we've done in the last couple of years, like 4 or 5 years, is especially the millennials that Sharon represents, have taken on betting it's the in thing. It's a new urbanization, so to speak. If you're not betting, then you're not cool.
It's a new contribution to the urbanization process.
Yeah, if you're not betting, you're out. The conversation continues. 0719-012-600. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. It's 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life.
A reminder of the closure of Thika Superhighway at the Ruaraka interchange, and that's going to affect us well into Sunday. So we have those issues that will play out on Thika Road. All right, looking at the situation in different parts of the city of Nairobi today, and we still have the overflow onto Langata Road coming out of the Magadi Road issue, and so that's going to take us a little bit of a while. All right, City Stadium is huge in terms of traffic because there's bumper to bumper traffic. We're getting traffic moving along Mahiga Mairu Road, which is off Wayaki Way, and it's being used as an alternate route because of what we see on the road at this particular time. All right, apart from that, nothing too terrible going on. If you do see something, let us know. Give us a call, 0719 012 600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Njeri Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Biggest conversation in Kenya and East Africa. 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi. This is the first and only 24-hour audio-visual radio station. So we are streaming live on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on Twitter, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, and also on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. Let's talk about betting.
Do you ever question why you do the things you do? Do you ever ask yourself what it is that influences your thinking process? This week we've talked about the concept of a value system. Excuse me. We've gone back and forth about it, but it's clearly something that takes a very central position in the way we look at things. And the fact that we're discussing it means we're thinking about it. Now, when we think about the things we like, we do have an order system. And one could argue this is, in essence, a value system. The things that we like the most as opposed to the things we like less, as opposed to the things we actually do not like completely. One of the things that human beings do well is to move towards things that give them pleasure. And on that one, people tend to be agreed, unless, of course, you have an inclination that sometimes is called a malfunctioning of your thinking processes, and you prefer things that other people consider to be antisocial. Now, when one talks about betting, as we call it, you're talking about gambling, really. And one of the things that guides the thinking process of most Kenyans is the moral factor, their faith, their religion, whichever it is that they subscribe to. And they may not know it, but even some of the value systems that they are taught by their parents are greatly influenced by the religion. And what the religion stipulates is often taken and absorbed without question. It's taken as sacrosanct, it's taken as almost the absolute truth, the unquestionable truth. Gambling comes to the fore of this country because, well, one, it's in your face, really. It's in the papers, it's on radio, it's on TV, and it's being presented as something that can actually get you to make money quickly. Now, anyone who's been involved in business will know that is the one thing that doesn't happen in business. Money is never made quickly. It is a process. But there's an entire generation of change that believes that that is not true. You can actually make money quickly. People who oppose gambling, people who oppose betting, oppose it because they say it gives rise to avarice, it gives rise to greed, it gives rise to thinking that you can do these things easily and you'll take the shortcut. And then they look at the outcomes. People who've gone that route, what has become of them, the financial messes they've left behind, the things that have gone unstuck as a result of this. And the list goes on and on and on. And then there's the aspect of, but these people don't force themselves into your life. They're licensed. It's a business. It's a legal business in the country. If you're to go by just the figures that came into being when the government was shutting down some of these gambling operations, we understood the amounts by the taxes that the government claimed that they were owed. And the figures were actually quite astounding. At the time, the figures were close to 400 billion in taxes that the government claimed they were owed. So if these were taxes, if we take this as a benchmark, if that is what the government is owed, then how much do they make? And again, with businesses, you have to ask the question, apart from paying the government taxes, what do they contribute to the economy? Do they employ enough people? What else do they do? We know them for the sponsorship of popular sports like football. We know some of them help orphanages. We know some of them employ people. But is this enough? If you look at the statistics of countries that have had gambling as institutions for a much, much longer period, if you're talking about, let's say, for instance, the U.S. The U.S. is famous for many things. There's an entire region that they call it Las Vegas, where what is it known for? It's a desert. It's known for gambling. Mm-hmm. And some of the statistics that come out of this place are really not very, very pleasant. When you consider just the number of people who they say commit suicide as a result of being involved. They say that people who've gone to Las Vegas and the suicide rate in that place is something like 14% when you consider those who are involved in gambling, as opposed to the national suicide rate is 1.3%. Mm-hmm. So it is alarming. Countries have their own statistics. For instance, Australia has this dubious claim that every year there are 1,600 divorces as a result of gambling. Divorces. Whether it is the trigger or whether it is the gambling, I'm not really certain, but that's the figures. Okay? Now, one of the things that even India posted statistics, and they say that one of the things that they realized in areas where there were casinos, home-owned casinos, was that there was an increase in crime by something like 9% and property theft by 4.5%. Whether the casinos directly had a direct bearing on this, that is a debate for another day. But a lot of negative things are attached to gambling. Now, biblically, if we were to talk about those who are inclined towards the Christian religion, believe me, the Bible is replete, not with the direct references to gambling, but direct references to the outcome, as in the exposure of one's, I use the word avarice because it's the word the Bible uses, but it says that right from the Old Testament, whether it's Leviticus to the modern times, the argument is that it brings out greed and it brings out some of the worst characteristics in people. A renowned character, no less than George Washington himself, had this to say. Now, George Washington, one of the fathers of the Constitution and the independence of America, gambling is a child of avarice, the brother of iniquity, and the father of mischief. That's what he had to say. What do you say?
Well, it's a benefit versus cost question, isn't it? Because, of course, it creates jobs, it creates an income, and it generates revenue for the government to tax.
And this is why of entertainment.
Absolutely. Well, that's questionable because of what it can lead to. This is why the government doesn't come down hard on them, because of the amount of revenue they can collect through taxes. I think for me, the fact that it does lead to suicide, crime, and the fallout is very negative. It should not be allowed to be advertised. And the marketing we have seen here that targets the youth, it's been in your face day in, day out. They're sponsoring football clubs. It's on billboards. You've got actual well-known personalities who are very influential to the youth, and they're propagating this idea of gambling. And the one thing people aren't aware of when they're getting into it is that the house will always win. Casinos will always win. It's always set up that way. That's why they're a business. That's why they're still going. You might win as an individual once or twice, but at the end of the day, when all's said and done, the casinos will always win. Now in Kenya, it's even more dubious in how they win, because I understand with some of these football sites and apps, they actually give you advice, and the way the odds are stacked, it's not properly calculated, and there's some misleading or misrepresentation of the info that they give you, and it's skewed always towards the company, the house as such. Now, given that it's quite a complex, or it's quite an esoteric area to have this knowledge, it's very difficult for government to then regulate exactly what it is these casino houses or these gambling houses and apps can actually do to people who are gambling. So there's a lot of misrepresentation for starters. There's a lot of coercion. There's a lot of over information and undue influence as well, which the government isn't able to regulate. And for me, those are my concerns. The fact that it's being marketed, and the fact that the government is not able to regulate exactly, the unfair terms and conditions that the people are being given, because it's such a complex thing. The government hasn't managed to get into it to understand, when you give football odds and they're skewed towards your end, is this legal or is it just unethical, that sort of thing. There's a lot of questions still to be answered.
I started by saying that I see betting is a form of entertainment, just like the others. And actually, CT, you said that. You choose what influences your choice. You're seeking entertainment, and therefore one of the ways that you do that is by going for gambling. When people go to casinos, they're actually seeking entertainment, right? So it's
initially, then you get addicted. It's
a form of entertainment initially that you're seeking, right? And then you may get addicted, just like you seek entertainment through consumption of alcohol. Then you may get addicted. So all of these, they are vices, yes, and they could be addictive, yes, but they start off as forms of entertainment. Now, the other thing is, where does the government come in, and how far does the government go in terms of, creating regulations? The regulation in this case is not just to control the consumption, but also just to make sure that you are all operating within a framework that allows everybody to benefit. You as the house, you benefit, and you as the audience, the person who's seeking entertainment, the services of this, also benefits and enjoys what they were looking for in the first place. It's the entertainment. It's that adrenaline rush of knowing, I'm spinning the wheel. Where is it gonna land? Am I gonna win? Am I gonna lose? Am I gonna win?
Is that what happens in Kenya?
That entertainment.
Is it the entertainment that is the reason why many people are entering into gambling? Because I see it where it comes from the point that someone has said, okay, well, I've bet 50 shillings, and then I'm able to win 200 million shillings because I bet the right team, and and then the next person comes in and says, oh, okay, all you had to spend was 50 shillings in order to get 200 million. Perhaps I can try this. So the thrill comes from not necessarily seeing the outcome of your bet, but the outcome in terms of monetary value, what comes from that, what I can win. I can get money.
Yes, it's the chances
from this
of that.
Sacrifice.
The chances of that are what is entertaining.
I don't think
I
it's
think
just
they're fulfilling a
entertainment.
need, that they're
I think
looking
some
for
people-
money. So people are actually
Absolutely.
looking for money.
There are
As
That's
an
why they-
income. They're
as an
looking at it
income.
as an income.
And
I
you
don't
find
think
that people are putting money aside.
There are people
to
who
do
will go.
this.
There are people who, yes, granted, there are